just got 2 minutes to open up. Set your premise, paint the picture, let the people know what it is that you are here to prove today, beyond any shadow of doubt, that the Bible is a book of liberation. Let's go, man. It's on you. You got 2 minutes.
All right. You can share my screen?
Yes. You want to share your screen with 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Bible is a book of liberation, and I'm going to show tonight that it alone offers the necessary conditions for true liberation. And I predict that Chris will not be able to show any similar thing. He won't be able to show any conditions in his worldview that are required for true liberation. I'm going to define liberation tonight as freedom from an illegitimate authority. This illegitimate authority may exert physical, political, or spiritual control over an individual or people. Liberation is to be free from such an illegitimate authority, and I have a fuller extended definition on the bottom of the page. I'm going to define oppression as human harm and suffering caused by unjust practices, such as laws or traditions, based on sinful motives and ideas, such as greed and hatred. Again, fuller definition on the bottom of the page. And here are going to be the 6 points that I'm going to bring out tonight. The Bible is the book of true liberation. It provides these 6 needed ingredients, and Chris will not be able to provide any of these ingredients from his worldview. It provides the foundation of liberation, that's the image of God, the method of liberation, which is to love God and neighbor, the model of liberation, which is Christ and his followers. It provides the condemnation of oppression. We'll see multiple verses of that tonight. The judgment of oppression, where all wrongs are made right, and ultimately the elimination of oppression, where at the end of time, the world is set aright. Whereas in any kind of non-theistic worldview, such as Chris's, you have oppression basically going on until the end of time. And that is going to be what I'm going to present tonight. And I want to make sure that people realize that when you try to take something out, such as a moral foundation as the Bible, you're not left with the vacuum. You're left with coming up with ethics and morals on your own. So tonight, you're going to hear Chris make condemnations without any moral basis.
All right, time, Chris, is on you. The time will start when you start, brother. You got 10 minutes in your opening round. Set the premise, cut that camera on, Vocab.
Hey,
let's go.
Let's get my screen share up. Let's get my screen share up real quick, and I want to get this opened up real quick here. And we want to let this be known. The name of this debate is the Bible a book of liberation or oppression?
Time start.
Now, the name of this debate is the Bible a book of oppression or liberation? That is the name of this debate. And my position is that the book is a book of oppression because it lets a group of people go into other indigenous lands and oppress them strictly based on their beliefs. Let's keep moving. The Bible deals with something called ethnocentrism. Now, ethnocentrism in social science and anthropology, as well as in colloquial English discourse, means to apply one's own culture or ethnicity as a frame of reference to judge other cultures, practices, behaviors, beliefs, and people, instead of using the standards of the particular culture involved. What we're hearing Vocab do right off rip is say, Chris has no moral foundation. My moral foundation is the human experience. I love I love balance, but that is not the discussion today. I want to reset this here and let everyone know it is the Bible being called into question for its impression that it has put on indigenous peoples. The words that we're going to be dealing with, some of the subjects I'm going to be dealing with is the misogyny that's in the Bible, which is hatred, dislike, or mistrust of women or prejudice against women. I'm going to be dealing with slavery that's in the Bible. Here's the definition of slavery. The definition of slavery is strictly the condition of a slave, bondage, the keeping as slaves as a practice or institution, a state of subjugation, severe toil, or drudgery. Moving on. Okay, let's move on. Let's define some words that will help define my argument once again. We're going to be dealing with oppression and liberation. And as you can see, the Bible is not a book of liberation. Oppression, the exercise of authority or power in a burdensome, cruel, or unjust manner. an act or instance of oppressing or subjugating to cruel or unjust impositions on restraints, the state of being oppressed mentally or physically by troubles, adverse conditions, anxiety, etc. The definition for liberation.
All right, family, it's about to go down. Y'all already see what it is. I'm already waiting for this. We got two powerful people in the building tonight. This is going to be a powerful discussion. Vocab, it's on you. The first 15 minutes. And family, y'all already know what it is. Hit that like button for your brother and show some love as well. Don't be afraid of that. Go ahead, Vocab. The time will start when you start.
All right. What we need to have when we talk about liberation, we need to have a basis for the concept. Here's why. Concepts like liberation are not found in the physical world. They're not material. They're not math. They don't weigh anything. Because of that, these are concepts. Concepts can't just hang in midair. There has to be an axiomatic foundation. There has to be a foundation that is appropriate and proper that you can rest a concept like liberation on. The Bible has this. Any worldview other than that does not, especially what Chris is, an atheist. Let me show you. It all begins in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. We look at verse 26 and 27. The scripture says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. And then you notice also later on in Genesis 9, you see where the basis of punishment in regards to capital punishment specifically, the crime of murder is to be punished by death. Why? Because God has made man in his own image. That's Genesis 9:5, which is also on your screen. Going on, not only do we have the imago Dei, meaning the image of God, which is stamped upon all humankind. Notice it said male and female there. We also have it in relationship to the human family. The human family. The second key important thing in regards to the basis of liberation is the fact that all humans are related. We have a common ancestor, Adam and Eve, and this is what you might call the human family. Acts 17 speaks of this, specifically verse 26. Listen to Paul to the Greeks. He says this, and he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. So we see from that there is a common ancestor in Adam and Eve, and also that God desires that all people should seek him. And it's interesting because Chris already started out with ethnocentrism. Then why is Paul, a Jew, a Hebrew, saying this to the Stoics and Epicureans? He wasn't on trial. He did this willingly. This wasn't a time where he was in chains. He was in the market and they brought him into the Areopagus. Why was he saying that God has determined where you should live, when you should live, but he desires that you seek him? Why would that be? Because of the basis of the human family. However, the human family is flawed, and so there needs to be a renewal. So out of the human family comes the people of God, or the family of God. And Paul himself speaks on that in Ephesians 2. For he himself is our peace, verse 14 says, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility by abolishing the law of commandments expressed in ordinances, that he might create in himself one new man in place of the two, so making peace and might reconcile us both to God in one body through the cross, thereby killing the hostility. There we see that there is a people of God, and this people are to worship and honor God. And this is the only way to get rid of oppression, is by people living in true harmony. The church is to be an example of that. No other worldview will have a proper solution. Not only does the Bible provide us with the foundation of true liberation, it provides us with the method, loving God and loving your neighbor. Look at Matthew 22. Jesus is asked, what is the greatest command? He answers from the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 6:5, love the Lord your God with all your heart. And he continues on and says, the second is like unto it. And he quotes from Leviticus 19:18, Love your neighbor as yourself. Notice it's vertical and then horizontal. The relationship with the creature and the creator must be right first. Then the relationship between fellow creatures can be made right. Again, there is no other way, because otherwise we don't fear judgment and we have no ultimate desire to do these kinds of things. We'll do it when someone's watching, but not otherwise. Love God first. Love your neighbor as yourself. Not only that does the Bible have the method of liberation, not only in loving God and loving your neighbor, but it shows us how this can be possible. Because on our own, our natural desire is not to think of others first. So it requires a new heart. This is a key part of the method of liberation, an inner transformation that only the new covenant can provide. No amount of counseling and psychology or therapy or drugs or chemicals will do it. And this is predicted in Ezekiel 11 and also predicted in Ezekiel 36, where Yahweh speaks about giving them a new heart. And notice verse 20, what it says here in regards to his people, that they may walk in my statutes and keep my rules and obey them. So the new heart comes directly out of something that the New Testament refers to as well, called a new creation. This is key as well. Look at 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. There is no other way for a person to change. If all we are predetermined by our DNA, such as the story of evolution would tell us, then we are stuck dancing to our genes. As Dawkins once quipped, he said, we're basically dancing to the song of our DNA, because that's all that can happen. It's biological determinism. But here we can be made a new creation with new desires. All this is from God. Verse 18 says, who through Christ reconciled us to himself and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. When we are reconciled to our God, then we can be reconciled to our fellow creature. The Bible provides the foundation of liberation, the method of liberation, and the model. Upon Chris's worldview, there is no model of liberation. There is no one to look to, but we have a model in Jesus Christ. He presented the model of liberation in his ministry. Look at what he says in Luke chapter 4. As he opens up the scroll to Isaiah and reads out of the Hebrew, he says this, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty. There's that word. That's what we're debating tonight. To the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed. This is a key fundamental element in Isaiah 61, and he speaks of it now, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. He closes it there, gives it back, and says, this is now fulfilled. That is when that scripture began to be fulfilled, is in the ministry of the Messiah, and will be ultimately finally fulfilled when the Lord returns. Not only do we have the model of liberation in the ministry of Christ, but also in the death of Christ. It was a sacrificial death. It was for others. And why did he do it? So we could have true liberty. This is the first order liberty. Physical liberty is very important. The Bible speaks on it. Exodus, that's one example. But this spiritual bondage is the first order of business we need to take care of. And look at this, Romans 6:5. I'm going to read here from verse 6b. Why did Jesus die? So that we would no longer be enslaved to sin. For one who has died has been set free from sin. Now, if we died with Christ, we believe that we will also live with him. And he goes on and speaks. So Christ death is so that we could have true liberty. And not only that, his disciples now model the liberation that Christ modeled, not dying for people, but by abiding in what he said. Look at John 8:31. If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. So guess what? Disciples who do not do what Jesus says are not his disciples. So we can give plenty of examples of Christians going off, but they're not abiding in his word. They are not truly his disciples. Verse 32, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Freedom and liberation are very similar concepts. And notice again what Jesus focused on here in verse 34. Everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. And verse 36 says, so if the Son, that's Jesus, sets you free, you will be free indeed. So we have the model. Plus, not only do we have the foundation of true liberation, the model and the method, we also have oppression condemned, and not just condemned by some guy who doesn't like it, condemned by the God of the universe who is just. Look at all the ways the Bible condemns oppression. Right here in Jeremiah 22:3, look at this. Thus says the Lord, do justice and righteousness and deliver from the hand of the oppressor him who has been robbed, and do no wrong or violence to the resident alien, the fatherless and the widow, nor shed innocent blood in this place. Look at that. So you're supposed to help those who have been oppressed. That's part of doing justice and doing righteousness. We're not supposed to do wrong or violence, not even to the resident alien among us, and especially the most vulnerable, the fatherless, and the widow, the most vulnerable. He says the Bible's misogynistic. Why is one of the Bible's favorite categories of people to speak about taking care of? The widow. Nor shed innocent blood in this place like abortion does. Jeremiah 22:3 talks about delivering the oppressed because oppression is condemned. Exodus 23:9 reiterates that it is for all. None are to be oppressed. Look at this. You shall not oppress a sojourner. You know the heart of a sojourner, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. Exodus 23:9 says, this encourages compassion and empathy. If we are simply hairless apes, why would we have compassion with beings who do not share our nerve endings? There is no ultimate explanation. People cite a study about empathy being helpful or something like that. It doesn't do enough to explain it, and it definitely doesn't explain why you ought to do it. It does not do that. Now we go on to the New Testament, and oppression is condemned because it is contrary to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Look at 1 Timothy 1:9-11. Understanding this, the law is not laid down for the just, but for the lawless and disobedient. Now watch who's going to be included in that. For the ungodly and sinners, for the unholy and profane, for those who strike their fathers and mothers, for murderers, the sexually immoral, men who practice homosexuality, enslavers. Some versions translate it as man-stealers or kidnappers, because that's what the word literally means. Liars, perjurers, and whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine, in accordance with the gospel of the glory of the blessed God with which I have been entrusted. Do you see the standard that we have? We have sound doctrine that is directly from God himself. What is the standard of the non-theist? Themselves. They're no ultimate standard. It's merely opinions when they speak. The Bible also has another key element of what we need to have true liberation, and it's not just the condemnation of oppression, it's the judgment of oppression, for God is a just God. The ultimate judgment of oppression is death. And here's one example. Exodus 21:16. Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him, shall be put to death. So you can't kidnap or be found with someone who has been kidnapped. Either one of those people, you'll be put to death. That's a severe penalty, is it not? Oppression is judged. There's also retribution if you oppress. Exodus 22:21-22 says, you shall not wrong a sojourner or oppress him, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. You shall not mistreat any widow or fatherless child. If you do mistreat them and they cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will burn, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall become widows and your children fatherless. That's retribution. In a non-theist
2 minutes.
worldview, who do you cry out to? When you're oppressed, Chris, who do you cry out to? The universe? The atoms? There is no one to hear. Oppression is judged also through exile in the Old Testament. Jeremiah 7:6-7. If you do not oppress the sojourner, the fatherless, or the widow, or shed innocent blood in this place, and if you do not go after other gods to your own harm, then I will let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave of old to your fathers forever. But there is oppression on this earth for now, but it's not permanent. It will be eliminated, the Bible speaks of. And this is the sixth and final component. Micah 4:3-4 speaks of a day when everyone will have their own property, with their own vine and fig tree. Specifically, they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. And notice that the disputes of the nations are gone. There's no more need for instruments of war. On an evolutionary worldview, you can never envision this day. It's death until we're blown up by an exploding sun or a big giant comet. Elimination of oppression. Division is eliminated. Look at this, Revelation 5:9-10. The Hebrew Israelites don't like this, but sorry, one Westers. This says that every tribe and language and people and nation will be before the throne of the Lamb. Look at that. That's division eliminated. In a new city, no more oppression. Look what Revelation 21 says. He, meaning God, will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be crying, nor mourning, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. So I reiterate that the Bible has the necessary requirements for true liberation in every way, and there is no alternative that will work. And so when Chris will try to nitpick, notice, first of all, he's coming from a place of no authority himself, but also he'll try to pick some small detail, not dealing with the larger story, because the Bible is liberty. Thank you.
Let's go, Chris. Let's go. All right,
And
Chris. Before you get on with your presentation, Chris, I want to let you know that you have 2 minutes to rebuttal what he just put up, if you wish to do so. You have 2 minutes before you even get into
okay, I like
presentation.
That. Okay, I like that.
So,
like
and same for vocab. I know he's going to be writing down stuff. So you got 2 minutes, Chris, when the time.
All right, let me first start this on out. First of all, I'm not an atheist. I just don't believe in your book. All right. Second of all, you continuously try to change the narrative by sitting up there saying I have no position of moral authority. What makes the Bible the moral authority? Some smoke in the damn sky who told some mythical man named Moses to go over and free the Israelites who were never in Egypt to begin with. And then these same Israelites who left up out of supposed Egypt that never happened, they go into Canaan and oppress the same group of indigenous people because this smoke in the sky sat up there and said that it belonged to them when there's no proof of it. So they leave oppression, according to the biblical narrative, to go into Canaan and oppress, kidnap, kill, rape, steal themselves, and say this smoke, this Yahweh, this God said that they can have the land. But yet we can find no anthropological evidence of any change in the material culture from the Canaanites from the 13th century BCE all the way down to the first millennium BCE. Lastly, before I get started here, condemning your God-forsaken book, you are running around trying to make it look like the Bible is the authority. That's why I presented my stance on ethnocentrism. These people are condemning everybody else for their beliefs, but you just don't see that within indigenous cultures, vocab. You sitting up there saying that Chris does not have a position of moral authority is simply your fault, because I tried to have a discussion with you today earlier on the phone with Sarnetta so we can get all that ironed out. But it is the biblical narrative that is on trial today. The Bible is a book of oppression. All you did was get on here and proselytize using some type of liberation theology that has nothing to do with the book. You exegeted certain verses from the book to create your own theology. Garbage. So let's get this started, because you mentioned Exodus 21:6 about stealing a man. So we're going to deal with that, and we're going to get the proper context on that. So with Sarnetta's permission, I would like to ask him, may I start?
Yes, sir.
Let me get this going here, because what you did was proselytize to everybody. We don't care about your Bible. Now, is the Bible, that is the name of this debate, a book of oppression or liberation?
All right. Get your presentation up so I can start. I ain't start the clock yet.
Let me get this up, man. The boy, boy, I'm ready now. He doing the typical European, talking about who's atheist and who not, when you ain't even had a discussion with me. This is what they do. I don't have to read a bunch of Bible verses to show you that the book is a book of oppression. The book tell you it oppresses people.
Time starts.
Let me tell everybody what the name of this debate is. It is called, Is the Bible a Book of Oppression or Liberation? Now, if this God was the supreme goddamn God, why he got to throw people in hell for not believing in him? He would just simply let the whole world know, hey guys, I'm God. Please believe in me. Let me do some miracles for the whole world to see. But yet he takes a doctrine, he puts a doctrine that man done had his hands all in. See? And that man done had his hands all in the book, and they done twisted and made the book sound like one of their own, and they can take the laws in the book sort of like you did with Exodus 21:6 and try to twist that and try and make it fit themselves. But since the inception of the story, let's go with Noah's Ark. Matter of fact, let's start in the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden, he put a snake there to deliberately fool him, so he can kick him out of the garden. Now, if he God and he know all and see all, why would he test him? Because he's a moral bully. He loves oppression. He like bothering people. Why would you put the snake there knowing that they would do it? What about Noah's Ark? Cursed be Ham, cursed be Canaan. Here it is, Ham. Look at Noah. He drunk and strung out on a table somewhere, and yet he turned around and say, "Cursed be Canaan," and Canaan wasn't even born yet, according to the biblical narrative, because ain't none of it true. We know it's just a story. But when I read something like that, and he say, "A servant unto servant shall he be," these Canaanites, that let me know that it's politically infused to teach this particular group of people that they are supreme to the Canaanites. Because once you start oppressing them, your human emotions begin to take over, and you begin to see, wait a minute, what we doing could be wrong. But because this is an archaic people, you got these wicked ass priests sitting up there saying, "No, God said we could do this to the Canaanites." And it started with Noah. Hey, they never decided to question him and say, wait a minute, was Canaan even alive? No, because you'll be killed if you question the priests. Remember, they were messiahs. Once again, the Israelites, they are liberated from Egypt, supposedly, and they were never there. They go into the land of into the land of Canaan, and they murder and kill everybody there. If that ain't oppression, I don't know what is. Why didn't God just tell the Canaanites, "I'm God"? Why didn't he just tell Joshua, "Hey, I'm God"? Joshua's guilty of hanging people, stealing land, killing women that have had sex with men. Moses too, he was wicked, along with everybody else. This is your narrative. But what did he do? He stayed in the New Testament where nobody was freed or redeemed, because Jesus was supposed to be a liberator. That's what the Dead Sea Scrolls spoke about, a liberator coming. The man said, look up. When you see yourself surrounded by enemies, look up, and you will see your redemption. No redemption ever took place. None. The book of Philemon, Paul is returning a slave. We're going to deal with all this. But now I want to get going here. Now, slavery is in the Bible, people. And it says right here in Exodus 21:6 through 6, 1 through 6. And this is what it says. It says, these are the ordinances that you are to set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. But in the 7th year, he should go free without paying anything. If he arrived alone, he is to leave alone. If he arrived with a wife, she is to leave with him. So if he came in there as a servant, probably trying to pay a debt off or whatever, and he had a wife, he can leave with her. But look what it says. If his master gives him a wife, she bears him sons or daughters. The woman and the children shall belong to the master, and only the man shall go free. Wait a minute. We got human beings that are being used as chattel. Not only is this a form of chattel, this is exploitative, and it's going to show you why. Because they put a stipulation in here so this person can remain in servitude forever, which is exploitative. It said, but if the servant declares, hey, I love my master and my wife and my children, I do not want to go free, then his master is to bring him before the judges, and he shall take him to the door and pierce his ear with an awl. Then he shall serve his master for life. This is what the text says. You're not going to sit back and tell us this is okay on any level in today's standard. This is oppressive. It is misogynistic because you have a group of women and her children being held by her master. They are now chattel. Now, what person would want to leave his wife and children behind? So he's got to try to run all around the Bible and try to make sense of that by reading to you Exodus about don't steal a man. Well, of course you can't steal a man from somebody because the people belong to somebody already. They belong to, people were seen as chattel amongst this group of people. This is what your God has allowed, and you talking about he can liberate you. He's sitting up here saying it's okay to oppress people. What was the definition for liberation that you use? You even tried to say it's a concept. No, liberating is the act or state of being liberated. So he had to try to finesse y'all into making y'all think that it's a concept. This is what the European does with his book. This is what they do. They come into the people in the indigenous lands and they try to lie to you with this book after you've been oppressed for so long. And you just want some time out of the field. So they read to you certain verses like Vocab did. But the slaves are our ancestors who had common sense. They said, hey, tell God to stop slavery. And they couldn't do it. The act or fact of gaining equal rights or full social or economic opportunities for a particular group. This was only happening in the biblical narrative with the Israelites. Jesus only came for the Israelites. He didn't come for you, and he damn sure didn't come for me. And where was Jesus during slavery? The book is guilty, and it makes itself guilty. Let's keep going here. Leviticus 25:39-46. Look what it says. Once again, it's gonna be a delineation between the Israelite and the heathen, the other people. And look what it says, people. It says, if a countryman among you becomes destitute and sells himself to you, you must not force him into slave labor. Let him stay with you as a hired worker or a temporary resident. He is to work for you until the year of Jubilee. Then he and his children are to be released, and he may return to his clan and to the property of his fathers. Because the Israelites are my servants. This is this God. He supposedly, as Vocab said, created all people equal. But this is the God speaking. He don't see people as equal. He says, the Israelites are my servants who I brought out of the land of Egypt. They are not to be sold as slaves. You are not to rule over them harshly, but you shall fear your God. This is what your book says. Your men servants and maid servants shall come from the nations around you, from whom you may purchase them. Here's the concept of chattel slavery, slave block auctionings, the things that we went through as Africans in this country. And if I can read it here and identify with it, I can throw it out this window. It says you may also purchase them from the foreigners residing among you or their clans, living among who are born in your land. These may become your property, chattel slavery. You may leave them to your sons after you inherit as property. You can make them slaves for life. But as your brothers, the Israelite, no man may rule over his brother, may rule harshly over his brother. He did not say that for the other people. So he put this law in here. And then you read something in Exodus about stealing a man, or that is death. Yes, it is death if you steal somebody else's property because they had property. Of course you can kill them. Once again, it's still oppressive and exploitative no matter how you look at it. Vocab Malone. Let's go back to some. I'm going to read something to y'all about Thomas Jefferson. This is very important because we get to see the concept that I just read. Y'all get to see it with him. Now, this is from the source, The Practice of Slavery at Monticello. Now, Thomas Jefferson owned plantations and held property in human beings his entire adult life, becoming a slaveholder for the first time at the age of 21 when he was still a subject of the British Empire. Jefferson inherited 30 enslaved people from his father, the British provincial surveyor and tobacco planter Peter Jefferson, in 1764. A decade later, after he married Martha Wells Skelton, daughter of the wealthy slave trader John Wells and half-sister of Sally Hemings, Jefferson inherited more human property, 135 men, women, and children. He also became a substantial landowner after the death of his father-in-law in 1774. Let's continue, people. Follow me. Gaining title to Ford Plantation that comprised of 14,000 acres in Virginia Piedmont. By 1782, a year before the end of the war with Britain, Jefferson had become the second largest slaveholder in Albemarle County. From this vantage point, he is the most blessed of the patriarchs at Monticello. Jefferson also encouraged and wielded control over enslaved families, particularly the bodies of enslaved women. I consider a woman who brings a child every 2 years. Let me repeat this quote. I consider a woman who brings a child every 2 years as, quote, an addition to the capital, Jefferson wrote. Like many planters in the 19th century, Jefferson sought to capitalize on the rising value of enslaved human bodies who were increasingly being mortgaged, sold, leased, and insured for the financial benefit of their owners. This is the same narrative going on in your biblical doctrine. You guys inherited some land. You guys killed everybody in the land. You guys enslaved everybody in the land. And you guys even enslaved your own. And you're going to sit here and try and talk to me and say that I don't have any moral fortitude. Your book, if I put this in the court of law, they would say, hey, this is evil. This is evil. But because he believed it first and read it second, he now does not want to address these verses. And I'm pretty sure this entire House of Consciousness audience heard me bring these things up first. He tried to run to that Exodus and say, thou shalt not steal a man. But it don't say thou shalt not enslave a heathen, does it? Nice try. I'm staying on you on this one. Now, here's one of the things I'm talking about in Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, verses 12 through 18, oppression and genocide of indigenous peoples. It says, when you approach a city to fight against it, if you are to make an offer of peace, when you approach a city to fight against it, you're to make an offer of peace. If they accept your offer of peace and open their gates, all the people will become forced laborers to serve you. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. Some liberating God, huh? Once again, these people are receiving this message from this smoke in the damn sky saying this land is theirs when they have no basis of it whatsoever. We can't find it nowhere in history, nowhere. And you got the nerve to come on here and say that it's a book of liberation using
2 minutes.
Using some liberation theology. Let's keep going, verse 12. But if they refuse to make peace with you and wage war against you, well, duh. Of course I would. Lay siege to that city when the Lord your God has delivered it in your hands. You must strike down every male with the sword. But the women, children, livestock, and whatever else in the city, it's all spoil. You may take its plunder, and you shall use the spoil of the enemies that your Lord your God is giving you. So you could take the women, you could take the children, but kill all the males. Why? Because if you kill all the males, the women and the children will submit, and you can use the women to rape and kill like your heathen deity tells you that you can. Shame on you, Vocab. This is the work of the European, and this is what they did when they came into Africa. This is what gave them power.
1 minute.
Why they read this book. It's full of filth. It's oppressive. This is God ordained. Throw it away. Throw it away, people. We don't need it. So with that being said, we got 2 rounds because I got more. I got more for you. You can keep your pontificating, your proselytizing going on. But this is my crowd. This is my audience. These is my people. Happy Black History Month, Vocab, Malone. Fuck the Bible.
Damn. Vocab,
All right.
he just had the up the ante right here, yo. I told y'all this is going to be fire. Damn, Chris came with that smoke in the first round. So I want to say to you, Chris, that under the sound of my voice, brother, don't think for 1 minute you are just taking on Vocab Malone. You are taking on the whole Hebrew Israelite family because they stand on that book. They standing on that book. I just got through talking to some Hebrews on the phone where they was hitting me. So Vocab, I'm going to give you 2 minutes of rebuttal before you get into the body of your second presentation. It's on you. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
You can rebut 2 minutes before your presentation starts.
All right. So Chris says that this is an excuse in the Bible for slavery and genocide. First of all, he has no right to condemn genocide. The Bible condemns genocide, but the Bible's not advocating genocide because it's not some kind of based upon race thing. It's based upon wickedness. They're being judged according to Genesis 15:13, the iniquity of the Amorites. God had already been patient for 400 years. What Chris doesn't like is he doesn't like the fact that God used Israelites to judge the Canaanites, much like he will return and the Father and the Son and the Spirit will judge this earth. Now, he says, if I put this in a court of law, this Bible would be declared evil. Evil, again, that's a concept. That's not even a crime you could be committed of in a human court. That's something that God does. He's the one who calls evil good and good evil. Who's the one judging anyway, Chris? Notice how when you replace God as a judge, you put your own self as a judge. I don't know why Chris brought up Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is not a Christian. He literally took scissors to the Bible and put out his own edition. So what does that have to do with it? Nothing. He says this is what Europeans do. Chris, who wrote the Bible? Europeans? Do you now think the Israelites were white? I thought just a few years ago you thought they were black. Now you think they're white? This is what Europeans do. Notice how Chris jumps from Israelites to Europeans without any explanation. He says kidnapping, of course it's wrong because it says that, they're someone else's property. Chris, it never says that they are anyone else's property. It says kidnapping any man. So why are you putting something into the text that's not there? He tells us Leviticus 25 equals slave block auctioning. Where's that in the text, Chris? Stop making up stuff. Stop putting stuff in the text. What that's talking about is when people sell themselves into servitude because they ran out of money. What are you talking about? You should be familiar with this book. He says, where was Jesus during slavery? He was with the Israelites, according to 1 Corinthians 10, and he came back and freed us from spiritual slavery on the cross, and one day will free the world from physical slavery as well. Lastly, why did God put the snake in the garden? He says Genesis 3:15 is the answer, so he can crush the head of the serpent, much like I'll crush you tonight.
All right, you can start your presentation. You got 15 minutes.
All right, I'm glad that Chris said,
are you ready?
Yes, happy Black History Month. It's funny, how can you say happy Black History Month while discounting what many of the famous people that we would want to talk about in Black History Month, what they believed and what they fought for and the basis on which they did so. But since Chris did that, I've prepared a presentation for him to educate him during this special month on how the Bible not only can be applied for liberation and against oppression, but it was and it has been again and again and again. Let's go down the list. I've created these and I think the audience will appreciate it. Betsy Stockton. Read a little bit about her bio. The thing I want to point out there is how she taught poor folks. She educated. That was a key thing. She was, yes, a missionary, single, but that's not all she was. She taught poor Black children in Philadelphia and a lot more. What is the inspiration for her to be a lifelong educator? Her Christianity. She was converted at a Princeton revival in 1815. Andrew Jackson Foster, a man that more people should know. He is called the father of deaf education in Africa. Now, he got a master's degree from Eastern Michigan, a second from Seattle Pacific, and then went and opened the very first school for the deaf in Africa. He taught students trade skills and the gospel. In 30 years, he founded 31 schools and 2 centers. Andrew Jackson Foster, what was his inspiration? He was saved at 16 in Detroit. Phyllis Wheatley, she was sold into slavery from West Africa, raised in Boston, yet was able to learn the Greek and Latin classics, first Black woman to publish a book in America, famous poems, one on the cruelty of slavery. And this is an example of how the Bible not only can liberate, it frees in so many ways. Similar, albeit a different time, Thomas Dorsey, well-known gospel singer, but not just that, he was the first Black gospel publishing company. He was the one who opened up the first one that was owned by Black folks. Thomas Dorsey. And you can listen to his old stuff. It's kind of dirty. You can dig it up on MP3s on YouTube, but he had a conversion experience. Thomas Dorsey, that's an example, the father of Black gospel music. Eliza Davis George, fascinating story. Guess what she did? Went from Texas to Liberia as an evangelist and founded something called the Bible Industrial Academy. And by the 1960s, she had opened up 27 churches and 8 schools, active in ministry until the 90s. Why? Why was she a missionary? Why a church planner? Why an educator? Her Christianity drove her. Alexander Crummell. This man was mentioned by Du Bois as one of his key mentors. Very educated. Just look at his bio on the right-hand side. He moved to Liberia, served as a missionary, pastor, professor. And what did he say? He said that us in America, as Black Americans, have a duty to help the continent that we came from understand the gospel. And he influenced Liberian intellectual and religious life for generations. And again, you can read about him from the pen of Du Bois himself. So this is not just an obligation to folks domestically, but internationally. What does Chris have to offer that will inspire people to preach liberation in this way? Nothing. All he has is criticism. He has no solution. Mary McLeod Bethune, many people have seen schools with her name on it and have wondered. A lot of people don't know who she is, though. She's a Christian educator. She had a motto: enter to learn, depart to serve. She was an advisor to several presidents, won numerous awards for her life as an educator. Started out with a school for children of poor Black workers in Florida. Educated at Moody Bible Institute. Read more about her. Education was powerful. She knew that. What drove her to do it? Her Christianity. Same thing with Daniel Payne. Mastered math, 3 languages. He had to get out of the South because there's a legislation preventing educating Black Americans. He moved north and did more. Founded something called Wilberforce University. And of course, he was an advocate for abolition. He was the first Black American president of a Black college. These are Christian leaders. These are people who preached and understood true liberation inside and out. And of course, we have Frederick Douglass. He speaks of his conversion. I have the quote right there. Do you know he taught a secret Sunday school for slaves? This man went worldwide advocating emancipation. He was so free, he wasn't even happy working with the big guy of his day in regards to abolition, William Lloyd Garrison. He started his own newspaper on abolition. This is liberation. Harriet Tubman got out of slavery, could have lived out the rest of her life in peace. Instead, went back over 8 years, 13 rescue operations, at least 70 slaves were freed. Some say up to 300. This is why she earned the nickname Moses. She didn't earn the nickname Nietzsche or something like, well, I don't think Nietzsche was around yet. But my point is, some atheistic humanist. It was Moses. That's not an accident. She was a Christian. So was Benjamin Banneker. He wrote a letter to Thomas Jefferson, who Chris brought up so ignorantly because he's not a Christian. And what did Banneker do? He argued in this letter against slavery on the basis of what? Christian doctrine. That's Benjamin Banneker. His obituary said he was attached to no book, quote, attached to, quote, no book more than the scriptures. Very smart man. He once had an almanac that encouraged the president to give every family a Bible and print John 3:17 on every door. Richard Allen, sometimes called the father of the Black church, he bought his own freedom, taught himself to read and write, converted, began witnessing, evangelizing other enslaved persons after he was free. He experienced severe racism in the Methodist Church. He started the AME Church. But that's not all. He co-founded the FAS, a mutual aid society. Him and his wife operated a stop on the Underground Railroad. This is real liberation. What inspired him? Who were the leaders of yesteryear? They're not people from Chris's worldview. Absalom Jones worked with Allen. He also co-founded the FAS, the Free African Society. It assisted newly freed Black folks. This is important. And he established a tradition of preaching an anti-slavery sermon on New Year's. Listen to Adam Coleman's beautiful upload on YouTube about that called The Ghost of Absalom Jones. He personally assisted the sick when yellow fever hit Philly. That's not an evolutionary impulse that tells you to do that. That's the God of the Bible. He had a sermon celebrating the end of the U.S. slave trade, and he published it. It became famous as a pamphlet. This is true liberation. Equiano, kidnapped from Nigeria, had to endure the Middle Passage. His autobiography is the first known slave narrative. It helped the UK abolish the slave trade. He went later to Nicaragua as a missionary. And look what he says. After all, this is a quote from Equiano. What makes any event important? Unless by its observation we become better and wiser and learn to do justly, to love mercifully, and to walk humbly before God. He's quoting Micah 6:8. He's not quoting a Greek or Roman poet, some secular pagan heathen authority. He's quoting the Bible. Thomas Lewis Johnson, mother was a slave, father was a freeman. He was sent away to work at 12. He was freed after the Civil War, moved to Denver, studied there, then went to the UK at Charles Spurgeon's College. Then he went to Cameroon as a Baptist missionary. He returned and raised support for other missionaries. What else did he do? Work with the Anti-Slavery Society. Published a tract you can still read online called Africa for Christ, 28 Years a Slave. Lot Carey was absolutely instrumental in the founding of Liberia. He himself was born in slavery, but purchased not only his, but his family's freedom at 33. Founded the African Mission Society, migrated to Liberia, did all kinds of wonderful things during his career, including established Liberia's first church, but not only that, schools there. He helped lead the young colony as a military organizer and then as its governor. These folks were boots on the ground men and women, and the Bible was their inspiration. They will tell you so. William Henry Shepherd did a lot of things, but what I want to point out here is the very last thing. He spent 20 years on mission from Africa, although he was not from there. He was ordained in Atlanta, studied with Booker T. What did he do there? He made the world known about the crimes of King Leopold II against the Congolese. These men and women understood the gospel message, and when they saw something that was unjust in this world, they spoke out about it, even at great risk to themselves. Amanda Smith, read about her. One thing I love about her is she took the money that she had from sales of her autobiography and from her singing career to open up an orphanage in Illinois. This is what is done when the gospel gets a hold of you. You don't sit around and enjoy your freedom. You help others. Matthew Anderson, Oberlin graduate, one of the first black students at Princeton Theological Seminary, but he wasn't just a man of God or a man of the word. He was a man of action in another way. He established a bank, a vocational school, an employment service, a medical clinic, and a summer resort. Because what would happen is black folks didn't have a place they could go on vacation and not have to experience racism. So he established a summer resort for that very problem. Even Du Bois applauded his holistic ministry. He opened up where you could get a loan, because that wasn't happening. His wife was one of the first black women to become a physician. And we finished with someone who is still alive today, John Perkins. He was born in Mississippi, fled to California after his brother was murdered by the KKK. He ministered with white and black alike, and MacArthur spoke about him. He saw his brother killed by the Ku Klux Klan men before his very eyes, had a lot of bitterness in his heart. But when he came to Christ, all of that was swept away. Only the gospel can bring that kind of change. And bitterness and unforgiveness that the world encourages will never get us anywhere we need to go in the future. Only the gospel is a solution. Chris has no solution. He's angry at the God of the Bible. He's angry at the scriptures, but he has no solution. Perkins was involved in voter registration and desegregation efforts in the 60s. He was wrongly jailed and even tortured by cops in the 70s. Founded something, you can still look it up online, called the Voice of Calvary School and Church, and many other organizations. I encourage you to watch more about his life. Let Justice Roll Down, the life and times of John M. Perkins. Now, there are many more men and women that I could bring out, that I could share here today. But it is important for the audience to see what animated these men and women. I didn't even mention everybody. We didn't get to men of great science like George Washington Carver. There's a lot more people we could mention. What animated them was a love for Jesus Christ. They had a true relationship with the God of the universe, loved God first and loved their neighbor. And they did not see those at odds. Chris wants to tell you the Bible is something all these people failed to see. They knew there was a difference between the Christianity described in the Bible and the Christianity they saw often in America. Douglas spoke about that very eloquently. But they went to the Bible and did battle against racists and segregationists. They knew what was there in the text. Chris wants to bring it back and basically say, hey, those people that preach suppression from the Bible, they were actually right. All these people and many, many more apparently got it wrong. But here comes Chris, benighted in the 21st century on Sonetta Studios to tell us all they were all wrong. I know what it's really about. Here's the real big story. And anyone else is telling you lies. Notice, Chris, none of these people were European. None of these people were European. I could have got into some European descent people. I could have got into John Brown, for example. Hold on, let me get my John Brown book. Where's my John Brown book? I got a great biography of John Brown I was going to show you. No, I don't know where I put it. I could have got into that. What animated John Brown? Do you know the scripture he quoted again and again and again? It was love your neighbor as yourself. And he was willing to die to put his line on that. And what's interesting is if you read the biography of John Brown, who saw himself in the Puritan tradition as a reformer, who was he inspired by? By Nat Turner. He thought Nat Turner had a fantastic idea with his strategy about hiding out in the mountains until a larger army amassed, and that is where he got his strategy. John Brown put action to his words. That's the only person of European descent I'm mentioning. There could be more. Lovejoy, there's a list. And they almost always were animated by the gospel. If you go over to Thomas Clarkson in the UK, or if you come back here and look at the Quakers. And so I want everyone to stop and say, if people of African descent in America and abroad, after the transatlantic slave trade, during it and during the effects afterwards, if they thought was Chris thinks, would liberation have occurred in the way it did? In fact, would have had the same unifying power of the community? Would the power been there of the moral authority of the God of the universe being on your behalf in this cause? Would that have been there? It would not have, and you would have not eliminated it. I challenge Chris to supply us with something else. He will not be able to. All he'll say is, well, the title of the debate's not that. But here's the thing. If the Bible is the book of liberation, whatever Chris offers ultimately is actually the true source of oppression. Because a humanistic, man-centered, whether it's based on evolution or any other kind of non-theistic origin story that eliminates the God of the Bible, provides no solution, provides no answer. And now, ladies, you see, even from history, when the Bible is applied, it brings liberty. Thank you.
All right. Powerful second round for Vocab. He coming with that information. I know he done taught a few black people up in here a little bit about black history. But anyway, we're going to go on over to Chris Harris. Chris Harris, you got 2 minutes in your rebuttal before your second round start. Use it the way you want. You got 2
All right.
minutes.
Well, first thing first is I think Vocab, what he's doing is trying to play on the heartstrings of the people here. And I'm going to do a share screen here, and I'm going to do this. And this is just real simple. Now, all that pontificating you did, all that pontificating that you did on this platform about what Frederick Douglass and what Harriet Tubman and what everybody did, they got shit done through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, bro. There ain't one damn Bible verse in any of that. And the reason why we were able to get that done is because we learned how to read. Yes, we read the Bible. Yes, the Bible probably was a source of inspiration. But that does not mean that they understood the Bible at the same time. They did not read everything in the Bible. But them reading the Bible, it was nothing but a source of inspiration. I can read the Quran and get inspiration. I can read Mein Kampf and get inspiration. I could read any holy text and get inspiration. But it was not the God that gave liberty to people. Not to mention these same people that Harriet Tubman was running and hiding as she was on the run. These same people also read the Bible. They also read the Hermetic hypothesis and used the Bible to enslave us. So they were still being oppressed with the Christian narrative, sort of like your Calvinistic doctrine of predestination. God can do whatever he want to do. Sonetta, I think I've said enough there. There are no Bible verses when we're talking about legal code, sir. And once again, this debate ain't about my solutions, because my ancestors have already put in the work. I am the embodiment of that. College grad, engineer, wife, a husband, home, sports car, you name it, good salary. Get out of here, Vocab. This is what y'all do. Sonetta, I think I've said enough there. He already debunked there. So, with your permission, Brother Sonetta, may I continue to milk this goddamn book here, because he all out of bullets. He all out.
Your 15 minutes starts when you start.
Okay, let's get it back going here, because he think I'm playing here. I'm not playing with you in this Bible here. All right, the bottom line was Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, sir.
Time start.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So let's get this going here. All right. All right. So I left off over here at Deuteronomy 20, when these people, if they want to make peace with you, you can kick down their gates and make them forced laborers, right? I read all this. Now, this is all based upon the fact that this smoke in the sky told him this, and he tells them these are the conditions that had to be met. Check it out, people. But the women, children, livestock, and whatever else is in the city, all that is spoil you may take as plunder. You shall use the spoil of your enemies that the Lord your God gives you. This is what your book says. This is how you are to treat all the cities that are far away from you and do not belong to the nations nearby. His chosen people, huh? That's a racist concept within itself, Vocab Malone. See, had you just spoke to me, we could have narrowed this down to maybe 1 or 3 verses and had a good conversation. But you didn't want to. You wanted to do exactly what you're doing now. Use the struggles of my ancestors to somehow legitimize this God-forsaken book. Let me say it again. And I hate to cuss like this, but I got to have my fists up today. All right? Fuck Yahweh. Fuck David, Solomon, Abraham, Jesus. These things were put in our minds so it can destroy our original divinity. We had real kings that fought wars and conquered all the way to the Euphrates. We had our own sets of gods, whether you read the ones in Egypt, Nubia, Ethiopia, West Africa, and the Christian doctrine. It came in there and it told you your stuff was in fact what? It was heathen. You see? This is what they have done, and this is what he is not acknowledging. Yes, our ancestors read this God-forsaken book, and I pray for their souls every day. May they be resting in a better place. And I'm pretty sure they've taken that book and thrown it out with the rest of the garbage. That does not legitimize your text. Them reading this does not write away what's in your book of oppression. You have to show the God liberating the people. And it didn't. It was their efforts, their sacrifices, their blood, their children that did it. It was legislation that did it, man. What's wrong with you? Y'all think this is, it's heartbreaking to hear another human being say that because they read the Bible, it did it, when slaves have always been revolting that didn't even know how to read the goddamn book. The hell is wrong with you? And you read from something called the urban theologian, some bullshit such as that. You can't convince me of that. It ain't working. Ain't enough cut on it, dog. So here in Deuteronomy 20, 12 through 8, we got slavery, genocide of indigenous people, because you know the smoke in the sky said it was their land. Let's look at Exodus 21, 20 through 21. This is what it says about how they can treat their servants. It says, if a man strikes his manservant or maidservant with a rod, so this proves that they were allowed to beat on them. There were just certain conditions on which they can beat on them. All right. And the servant dies by his hand, he shall surely be punished. Okay. But look at the second stipulation. However, if the servant gets up after a day or two, The owner shall not be punished, since the servant is his property. I think that's slavery. Not to mention what I read to you over in Leviticus 26, that these probably are his slaves for life. So he can do whatever he wants with them. He just can't kill them. Look at some more. Don't believe me. It says if a man strikes and blinds the eye of his maidservant or maidservant, he must let the servant go free as compensation for the eye. And if he knocks out the tooth of his maid or maidservant, he must let the servant go free as compensation for the tooth. This is the concept of eye for eye, tooth for tooth. But if he hits him in the eye, not hard enough and the eye stay in there, where's the punishment at? The only way you can go free is a busted eye or a broken tooth. Man, get up out of here, man. Your God is an enslaver, man. This is why he liked the book, because it gave them power. Numbers 31:17-18. Let's go into it again. Here's more genocide. But look what he says. This is what your God says. I'm sorry, Moses says. And he was a friend of God. Once again, fuck him too. And it says, now therefore, kill every male amongst the little ones. Kill every woman that has known a man by lying with him. So Moses is commanding these heathen people to kill the women that have had sex with men. How they know they were virgins anyway? Because they had children. That's how he would know that they would not have had any, that they weren't virgins. Because they probably got children. So kill them. Kill them right there in front of their children. But all the women and children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Why? Because you can take those women and do whatever you want with them. Remember what it says here. But the women, children, livestock, and whatever else is in the city, all its spoil you may take as plunder. But you better kill everybody else. This is not a book of liberation. What you gave us was liberation theology. We could have had a conversation about liberation theology. So now it makes it almost seem that we having a discussion about two different things, vocab. But that's okay. You did it to yourself. Deuteronomy 21:11-14. I think I'm proving my point here. When you go forth to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God has delivered them into your hands. This is why I put everything in red. But Jesus didn't say this. This is Chris highlighting this. It says, after you have taken them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman and desire to her, and have a desire for her, that you should have her for your wife, then you shall bring her home to your house, and you shall shave her hair and cut off her nails. So cut off the objects of her beauty. What kind of shit is that? This is disgusting and it's repugnant. And this is what you're trying to sell to us? This is our liberation? Can I do this today? These are God's righteous laws. The Israelites have to return to this, and I'll deal with my people later on this nonsense, because I'll be damned if they grab another woman and cut her hair off, prune her nails. And he shall put the raiment off her captivity from her, and she shall remain in your house and mourn her father and mother a full month. And after that, you shall go into her. That means have sex, vocab. After you done killed everybody, she probably paralyzed with fear. And she shall be your wife. And it shall be, if you have no delight in her, then you shall let her go where she will. But you shall not sell her at all for money. You shall not make merchandise of her, because you have humbled her. You've had sex with her. Because if another man marries her according to your law, she ain't got nowhere to go, because now she's seen as defiled. See, this is all exploitative. No matter how you try to slice this, you can run to Jesus, the Pauline doctrine. This is what the books say. Moving on. Here it is. Oh, let's read this. Leviticus 19:20. And whoever lies carnally with a woman that is a female slave. God damn, here's these slaves again, brother. Betrothed to a husband and not at all redeemed. You see, you can't force me to think this say something else. Stop running a 51 fake on me. It says, and not at all redeemed. Redeemed mean freed, nor freedom given her. She shall be scourged. They shall not be put to death because she was not free. So if I see a girl that look good and I lie with her, which is oppressive in itself, because I can't have sex with a good looking woman because some smoke in the sky say so. That's why I say the laws are very ethnocentric. It's only for a particular group of people, because if this is the case, most of the women will be dead over here in this country. It says she shall be scourged. They shall not be put to death because she wasn't free. That's what your book say. Moving on. Here's another funny one, misogynistic. When a men strive together one with another, and the wife of the one draweth near for to deliver her husband out of the hand of him that smiteth him, and putteth forth her hand and taketh him by the secrets, I guess grab him by the nuts, then thou shalt cut off her a hand, thou shalt not pity her. Here's the funny thing about this. Why did I put this in here? Cut her hand off for helping her husband because he getting his ass whooped. So the only way a woman can really compete with a man is to probably punch him in the nuts, vocab. But now this man who getting beat up by another man, he got to take the woman home, stick her hand out and cut it off because he was getting his ass whooped. Are you serious? That's misogynistic. There's the law. How about the law for him losing a fight? Or how about the law for him just getting drunk and waking up cursing a man that wasn't even born yet, such as Noah and Canaan? Where's them laws at? This book is full of imbalance. Yep. Here's another one. Check this one out, y'all. Y'all gonna love this. And it says, one more time, because we're dealing with misogyny, I want to keep my argument intact. Forgive me. Genesis 19:7-8. This is misogynistic. This is how they treated women. It says, and I said, I pray you, brothers, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. This is the story about Sodom and Gomorrah when the men wanted to come in there and rape the men. Y'all remember that story? Listen to what it says. It says, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out to you, and you can do to them as is good in your eyes. Only to these men do nothing. For therefore they came under the shadow of my roof. He's saying y'all can have my daughters do whatever y'all want with them. Please don't come in here and rape the men. Oh my God. That's misogyny. He bargaining off his daughters. And he told them they were virgins. This is what your book say. And it sounds ridiculous. But this is what you present in front of us today. Look, Deuteronomy 22:28-29. It says, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her and lie with her, and they be found, then that man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's fathers 50 shekels of silver. And she shall be his wife because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. So he inflicted her in some type of way, and she has to suffer this punishment. He gave her money, so he went and bought the man's daughter for 50 shekels of silver. He humbled her, whatever it may be. She didn't have no say in the matter. That's what the book say. And this is what you sell to us. You know why, y'all? Because this is what they did to our women when they came into Africa. Instead, you was bought for a bottle of wine. This is why he don't want to fight against it, because if he says, Chris, you're right, now the whole book got to get called into question. It's oppressive. And he doesn't want to admit that because he believed it first and he read it second. We were all fooled at one point, all of us on here. But MVP is bringing it to y'all right now. You on here talking about what's my answer? Education and economics. There's my answer. Boom, I just answered it for you.
2 minutes.
And that.
2 minutes.
All right. Here's where the book ain't even fair at. Remember, guys, we talking about liberation. We talking about oppression. Look at what it says. You shall not eat anything that dies of itself. You may give it to the alien who is within your gates, that he may eat it. Or you may sell it to a foreigner, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. That's what it says. Let's move on. If brothers dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the widow of the dead man shall not be married to a stranger outside of the family. Her husband's brother shall go into her, take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a brother to her. Ill. Moving on. Where the wife don't even have say so in that. What's that? What's that, sir?
Nothing. You got 1 minute.
Okay. Can I get an extra 5 minutes? Can I get one? I'll give him 5.
Go ahead. It's up to vocab.
Okay.
Let me see if it's up to vocab. I'm gonna stop your time.
Can I get extra 5?
No, I don't need extra 5 minutes. I don't want you taking extra 5 minutes.
I know you don't. You don't.
That's because I don't need it. It's not my fault you can't manage your time. I want to make sure we have time where I can ask you questions. So
all right, vocab, let him finish.
Hey,
you got 52 seconds. 52 seconds.
No, you got to give me more time. Again, give me a little bit more time.
You got 55 seconds. Go ahead.
Thank you. Deuteronomy 22:13-21. Here's something that's very embarrassing to a woman. If a man take a wife and go unto her and hate her and give occasions of speech against her and bring up an evil name upon her, and say, I took this woman when I came to her, I found her not a maid, which is going to be half the women in America. Then shall the father of the damsel her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity unto the elders of the city. Let's skip down. It says right here, but if this thing be true and the tokens of virginity be not found amongst the damsel, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of the city shall kill her, stone her with stones that she died, because she hath wrought folly in Israel to play the whore in her father's house. So you shall put the evil out amongst you, just because she wasn't a virgin. Where are the laws if the man wasn't a virgin? It don't exist. So the book is oppressive. The doctrine is oppressive. There's no liberation for women. There's no liberation for the Canaanites or any of the other indigenous peoples in the land. Your book is full of hate speech. The God hates everybody else except for his own people. Jesus didn't redeem the people. The book of Revelations also speaks of freeing the devil and let him reign loose. And it also speaks about he who goes into led into slavery shall go into slavery. So slavery is even at the end of the damn Bible. There's no freedom anywhere. What you did was use proselytation, pontification, and any other Christian method to try to trick black people on this panel, in the chat, and in the world. Fuck the Bible.
Damn. Time, y'all. Time. Vocab, you got 2 minutes to rebuttal before we get into the question and answer period. You got 2 minutes to rebuttal.
Yeah, there's no way to be able to go over.
You ready? You ready to go do the 2 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, it's on now.
In 2 minutes, there's no way I can go over all the passages he's bringing up. And I don't think he intended for me to be able to. But there's 2 that are important that are overriding concepts. Chris still has his Hebrew Israelite training. He doesn't see the Bible as the whole picture. He looks at it piecemeal. But if you look at the Bible with the big complete picture, like Jesus did, you have a greater understanding. So we turn to Mark 10:6, and the Messiah now comments on Genesis, and this applies to many of the Old Testament regulations in regards to Israelite society. There is not an Israelite theocracy or a monarchy in which these specific civil laws would even be applied today. He doesn't like them, but I guess he wouldn't have liked any of the A&E societies back then. I guess he would just would have complained about being in Assyria. But the fact is, the Bible's laws were the most just of their day, but they were not perfect because the world is fallen and not perfect. The garden is a perfect state, and the city at the end is a perfect state. And Chris got Revelation 13 wrong. That's his old Hebrew Israelism coming back. It's not saying that you're going to enslave people. It's saying that if it's deemed by God that Christians will be suffering suffer a certain way, that's how they'll have to suffer. Read the verse again, starting with verse 1. It's saying that some Christians are going to be jailed, other Christians are going to be killed or beheaded. Read the verse again in its full context. You'll see what I'm saying. It's not the Hebrew Israelite interpretation. So here's the passage, Mark 10:6. Jesus says this: from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. That's verse 6. And watch what he writes in verse 5 as he speaks about divorce. And Jesus said to them, because of your hardness of heart, he wrote you this commandment. There are commandments that regulate sin in a fallen world, but doesn't mean they encourage it. Mark 10:6 is very important. So some of these have to do with the hardness of heart. Some of these have to do with the fact that it's a Genesis 3 world. That means a fallen world. One other thing that is important to get the big picture on this, the meta narrative that helps explain what's going on, is the book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 22. and Hebrews 8. Let me read both of these because here the Bible speaks about the comparison between the old and the new covenant. And look what the author of Hebrews says in regards to Jesus. This makes Jesus the guarantor of a better covenant. And then it continues on in 8:6, but as it is, Christ has obtained a ministry that is as much more excellent than the old, as the covenant he mediates is better, since it is enacted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, there would have been no occasion to look for a second. Verse 13 says, in speaking of a new covenant, he makes the first one obsolete. And so, Chris, why aren't you dealing with the new covenant?
Okay, so now vocab, here we are. We in the rebuttal stage. We in the cross-examination stage. I'm going to put 15 minutes on the clock. And no, 10 minutes. I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock and allow you to question, cross-examine Christopher Harris. You have 1 minute, Chris, to answer the question so he could get as much questions he can. You have 1 minute. If you want to move on, vocab, and feel that you're not getting anywhere, just say next question, move on, and we move on. Same with Chris Harris. It's the same thing. All right, vocab.
I done sweated out my shirt. So,
okay, I'm gonna put it back to 15 because this shit do be going fast. All right, so
15 minutes each, or is it?
It's 15 minutes each.
Okay.
So vocab, it's on you. It starts when you ask when you ask your question.
So I have the first 15 minutes and he has the second 15 minutes?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Let me just make sure I got everything set up where everyone can hear me and all that. Okay. All right. Chris, is liberation moral or immoral?
It's moral.
Okay. Why do you say that liberation is moral?
Based on the function of the definition alone, it's moral.
The definition of what, Chris?
Liberation.
Okay. So the definition of liberation makes it moral. What's the definition of moral then?
The definition that has nothing to do with the debate. Moral.
I'm asking you a question. I noticed you did this in your other debate. Whenever you didn't like the question, you would say that's not pertinent or that's a non sequitur.
It's not vocab.
You have to answer questions. Is it moral or define moral? If you're saying liberation's moral, why can't you define moral? It is relevant because liberation is a moral concept, according to you.
Okay, well, moral means what is right or wrong.
Okay. How do you, Chris Harris, determine what is right or wrong?
Based on the human experience.
Chris, how do you know all of humans' experience?
By the relationships that I have today.
Okay. Do you know all humans, Chris?
No, I don't know all humans.
How do you know which humans that you know are right and which ones are wrong?
Because how their decisions affect me, how my decisions affect them, how their feelings towards me are predicated based on the decisions that I make around them, how I treat and do unto others as they do unto me.
Did you just quote the Bible, Chris?
No, I actually quoted what's in the teachings of Amenhotep.
Do you view Amenhotep as an ultimate authority?
No, I view Amenhotep as a book, nothing more.
Okay. So books have no special authority for you?
Books have no special authority for me, no.
Okay, then why'd you quote it as an authority?
I did not quote it as an authority. You're saying that I'm quoting it as an authority.
Then what is your authority?
My authority is the human experience.
Who is that? Who is the human experience?
Me and the people in my family around me and my friends.
But why are you calling that the human experience if it's just you and your family and your friends? Why don't you call that Chris Harris in a circle?
Because I'm a human and I'm having experiences with them.
Are you having the same experiences as humans in Iraq 2,000 years ago?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so it's not the human experience. It's you and your limited set of people you know.
Okay, fine. I'm still a human and I'm having an experience with other humans. What's your point?
What is a human?
Really? Are we serious?
Yeah, I'm asking you, what is a human? How do you define human?
One, I'm talking to two of them right now. That's a silly question.
Okay. What is a human, though?
A person who is alive.
Okay. Do you believe that humans have inert or inherent value in and of themselves?
Yeah.
Okay. Where does said value come from in humans?
The human experience.
Okay. Have humans always existed on the planet Earth?
Yes.
Okay. How did they get here?
I don't know.
Okay. So how do you know they have value if you don't know their origin?
That's a false equivalency.
If you don't know their origin, you can't know their purpose. You can't know what something is designed to do for it unless you know who or how it was designed. So how do you know humans have inherent value?
Excuse me, that's a theological question that you're trying to add and ask me, and that's very misleading. What you're trying to do, I have a
answer the question instead of telling me what the question is.
I'm going to answer the question intelligently. What you're trying to do is ask me a misleading question that leads into your theological basis. I'm not here to question the
why do humans have inherent value, Chris?
Humans have inherent values because of the experiences that we share with one another.
What about the experiences that people share makes them have inherent value?
The way we treat each other, the way we speak to each other, the way we define our existence amongst each other.
Okay, does a man living alone on an island still have inherent value?
Yes, he does.
So his inherent value doesn't come from being in community like you just said. You said it comes from the way we speak and live with you, but it doesn't come from that if a man living on an island has inherent value.
Chris,
no, you're not. I'm asking the question.
Sorry, you have to let me answer that question because
the question is this. The question is this.
Hold on, no, you're not.
Where does inherent value come from?
Inherent value comes from the experiences that we share around us. And I'm going to explain why you're trying to talk for me. If a human is isolated on an island, as we could see in certain instances, people will make friends or befriend even a rock. Even in this movie Alive, you saw Tom Hanks, he befriended a volleyball by painting a picture on there. So he created a relationship with an inanimate object. So your question is very misleading. Also, he started there's points in that movie where he spoke to fire and made friends with fire.
Why are you quoting Tom Hanks movie? I was hoping you weren't going to do that. That has nothing to do with anything.
Just like your question doesn't. You're talking to me about human immorality.
Let me rewind it for you and show you how it does, Chris. You said the inherent value that humans possess comes from their relationships with others. So I mentioned a person in a situation that has no relationship with others. Why does that human have inherent value?
Because of the experiences that human has. Even within, hold on, let me answer the question. You're cutting me off. I'm
allowed to do that.
Human nature has shown that we could share experiences with nature alone. This is where you get This is where you get concepts of religion. People have personified the sun, the air, the trees, and the ground itself.
Yes, that's exactly what Egyptian religion does.
No,
that's what Egyptian
there are many religions. There are many religions that do that.
This is not a debate time. It's a Q&A time.
Let me say this, Vocab. What you're doing?
No. Hold on.
No, Chris, you got to answer this question.
I'm asking you questions. This is a Q&A. You can do the same thing to me.
Okay.
You have not answered one time any objective way that you know humans have inherent value other than you've asserted it. That's all you've done. Now I'm going to move on because I can tell you have nothing to say about that other than bringing up Wilson. So let's switch gears. You say you pray for their souls every day. You talked about the ancestors. Who do you pray to, Chris?
My mother and my father.
How do you know your mother can hear you, Chris?
Because I can call her and talk to her.
What does she say to you?
None of your damn business.
So your mother speaks to you.
Really?
Does your mother speak to you from the grave?
My mother is not dead. Watch your mouth, white boy.
So, there we go. Okay. I like it.
No, but you said, does my mother speak to me from the grave?
Time out. I assumed if you prayed to somebody, they were dead. Go ahead.
No, listen, white boy, don't do that shit.
Hold on, Chris, hold on. Yeah. It's an honest mistake because you said that hold on, brother. You said that you speak to the ancestors, so that's why he assumed that your mother may have, it wasn't disrespectful on his part.
Yeah,
basically,
I'm saying.
Watch your mouth.
Stop telling me that. Stop telling me that. And just because you can't answer,
all right, let's keep it clean. Let's keep it clean, y'all. We doing good.
Let me debate. This is
on you. It's on you, Vocab. Keep it going.
The problem with your emotions is why I did not want to debate you, because you are one of the most emotional.
You challenged me.
You are one of the most emotional debaters on this platform.
You challenged me.
Going back to this.
What are you talking about? You challenged me.
Why do you pray to a living person?
Praying is a form of meditation. So let me correct my answer. Let me correct my answer.
You meditate to living people?
Yes.
Okay, what is a living person going to do for dead ancestors that you brought up?
I didn't say that I pray that a living person does something for dead people.
You said you pray for their,
hold on.
Let me tell you what you said, because I wrote it down.
He's
You said I pray for their souls every day.
He's trying to
I pray for their souls every day.
I said when I prayed for them, let me just be honest with you. I was just using a figure of speech.
So you don't pray for your ancestors.
No, I pray to the ancestors. Yes.
Okay, so you're changing what you said. You said I pray for their souls every day.
No, I'm trying to clarify myself because I am being a little.
I'm asking questions. My goodness. Okay. Here's what you said. I wrote it down. I pray for their souls every day.
Yes.
In regards to people who had followed the Bible, and then you said, I hope wherever they are now, they threw that book away. So you were talking about dead people, saying you're praying for them. Now, under the heat of cross-examination, you're telling me you don't pray for them. You pray to them. So you're praying to people who did believe in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you think that they want you to do that?
Yes.
So Harriet Tubman wants you to pray to her.
I don't pray to Harriet Tubman.
Who do you pray to?
My grandmother. My great-grandmother.
So first it was a living relative. Now I assume it's a non-living relative.
Okay, so I want to stop you there because once again, what you're trying to do in this cross-examine is crisscross my answers.
I'm quoting.
You're asking me a lot of misleading questions.
I'm quoting. Is that all you got? If you don't,
there's my answer.
In other debates, when you don't want to answer, you say it's not relevant. Now that you have to answer, you're saying
other debates. We're talking about this one today.
Here's my point by why I'm asking you these questions.
I don't care what your point is.
Even when Chris, there's a whole audience here, so I'm not just talking to you. Please stop interrupting me during my cross-examination.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
There's a whole audience I'm speaking to. Chris says there is no God, F God. By the way, which seems awfully ethnocentric of Chris, because he says F Jesus, a Hebrew. He says F David, a Hebrew. So he's in a position where he can tell other indigenous people F them. It sounds awfully ethnocentric to me. Yet, as he says F Yahweh, he ends up praying to creatures. Chris is the embodiment of Romans 1. Romans 1 says they exchange the truth of God for a lie. Amazing. Instead of worshiping the God who made all things, they look to creeping things and created things, either animals or human, which is exactly what you've done. Now, previously you said we had our own.
Is there a way I can answer that?
Previously, you said we had our
answer that. You just did something very ethnocentric.
Chris, you gotta wait. No. You gotta wait. Okay. To ask you a question.
I'm asking you a question now. You said previously we have our own traditions, and you said you specifically mentioned gods of Egypt. You mentioned Egyptian traditions. You said specifically Egypt. Do you believe the gods of Egypt are true? That they're right? That they're correct?
No, I believe that was one of the many gods that I mentioned in Africa. What I stated about the gods of Egypt is I said we had many of our own divinities in Egypt, and that the biblical gods were placed upon us in order to erase that from our psyche over the many years of oppression that people that look like yourself, not necessarily yourself, have come in and said that those things are evil. That's what I have a minute to answer.
No,
that's what makes. I have a minute to answer.
But
he got a minute to answer.
He got a minute. He got a minute to answer.
Yeah, but every question
I have a minute to answer.
You won't get through. Remember?
What you're trying to do is cut me off so I don't give a clear answer, and you've been doing that the whole time.
No, Sonetta, before they don't take the full minute.
All right, go ahead. Vocab. Your time is still going while y'all arguing.
That's what he's trying to do.
Answer it. You can ask me a question and I can't answer it.
Do you follow any African gods you can tell us about?
No.
Okay, so why are you bringing them up saying that they were theirs when you don't even follow them yourself?
Because I was speaking. See, once again, I was trying to answer that question for you and you keep cutting me off. So can I answer the question before I begin to answer? Thank you. What I was stating was the Christianity has come into Africa and it has erased the psyche of the African by saying that your gods are in fact heathenistic and the principles are in fact wrong. This is why you keep reading Bible verses to everybody, trying to explain. I have to answer the question. I have a minute.
No,
so this is why you keep reading Bible verses to everybody, trying to prove the Bible to be true. That's what an apologist does. They try.
All right, you're not answering the question.
Right, you got to let him ask the question. Go ahead.
You have to be able to stop because Chris. this is a debate on the Bible, and you were also bringing up Bible verses. So of course I'm going to bring up Bible verses since you're falsely misrepresenting it. Now, this is why you have to be cut off, because in the middle of the answer, you start launching into a response time, which is not fair. Chris, you said that you could read Mein Kampf. You said you could read Mein Kampf for inspiration, Chris. What inspiration have you gotten out of Mein Kampf?
I said that hypothetically.
What inspiration would you get out of Hitler's book that means my struggle based upon neo-Darwinism?
No, I used it as an example by saying, if you read the Bible, you can get inspiration. If you read the Quran, you could get inspiration. A racist can read Mein Kampf and grab inspiration.
You didn't say a racist, you said yourself.
But I'm giving you specifics.
Okay. You said I
was using myself as an example.
Can you tell me somebody, Chris, in history who has read Mein Kampf for inspiration to liberate others?
Excuse me?
Can you tell me one person in history who has read Mein Kampf to get inspiration to liberate others? Because that was the point about the Bible. Who has read Mein Kampf to liberate others?
I don't know. But I said that book can be used. A book can be used.
So you don't know any person in it, and you don't know anyone that's done it, but you just said it.
Well,
so
the Bible is here. I'll tell you this.
Advocating for Mein Kampf.
One more time, you're trying to convict me without even letting me answer the question. Why is that?
You answered the question. You did very well.
Okay, so one more time. The book Mein Kampf and the Bible go hand in hand, brother. Ku Klux Klanmen and Aryans, they use the same two books. Now, if you read the book Mein Kampf, which speaks on nationalism, socialism, killing off indigenous peoples, black peoples, Jews, etc., you can read the Bible and flip the reverse the roles and see the Jews said kill off the Canaanites, kill off the Hittites, and kill off the Hivites. It's all the same thing.
And yet, the people we were speaking about worked for others' freedom. And so now you're trying to use Mein Kampf as a source for debauchery.
I use it as an example.
This is my Q&A time.
No, but I'm not going to let you say I use Mein Kampf as a source.
I'm going to tell you something.
You got to let him question you, Chris.
What you were doing to me during your cross-examination.
Oh, don't worry, because you won't answer one.
I'm going to do what you're doing to me, okay? Because this is not, the way you approach it was not fair.
Okay.
But that's okay, because you have no standard to just what is fair, right, and moral. And that's my questions. With none of your answers have you shown us what your standard is to judge these things. So I'll ask you again, Chris, what is your standard?
You got to turn on the camera, Chris. You got to turn on the camera.
Right or wrong, Chris? What is your standard?
Chris. Oh, come on, Chris. You got to turn the camera.
No, the camera fell off. My fault.
Oh, well, maybe
ask your last question, Vocab.
Your mic didn't turn off, though. So what's your standard to judge what is right or wrong?
The human experience.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so with that, Chris, get your questions ready. I'm going to go to a quick commercial. And when we get back, you should be ready. It's only a minute.
Let that camera run. Let that camera run. Here's what I think. Let me do this real quick.
Chris, you now have 15 minutes to cross-examine Vocab. And the time will start when you finish your question, the first question.
All right. First question, Vocab Malone, what was the name of this debate?
Bible, Book of Liberation or Oppression.
Okay, very good. In Leviticus 26, can you pull that up, please?
Sure.
Excuse me, Leviticus 25. In verses 39 through 41, it speaks of an Israelite selling himself into destitution, selling himself in as a servant to his own brother. Is that true?
If your brother becomes poor beside you and sells himself to you, you shall not make him serve as a slave. He shall be with you as a hired worker and as a sojourner.
Very good. Now, verse 42, does he give an example on why they cannot serve as slaves?
Verse 42 says, for they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves.
43 also states you shall not rule over them harshly. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in verses 44 through 46, is there a delineation made between the Israelite and the nations or the heathen nations that are around them?
You cannot have the same kind of slaves as you can with the nations around you, verse 44 says.
Okay, verse 44 does not say what you just stated.
You may buy male and female slaves from among the nations that are around you.
Very good. It says you're made
type of servitude.
Excuse me, I'm asking the questions here.
Oh, you don't like being interrupted? You don't like that?
It says your men servants and maid servants shall come from the nations around you, from whom you may purchase them. Does it say that?
I'm not reading from the version you're reading. So what I said is what my version says.
Okay, so it's one of the many versions, doesn't matter, but we see an institution of chattel servitude or slavery here. Am I correct?
That's not how we define it at all. No,
it's not how you define it. Can you give me a definition for slavery?
It's not an institution. This is debt slavery. If you read
excuse me. I'm gonna read this to you. It does not say this is debt slavery.
You ask me a question, I'll answer. This is about when they're poor.
Excuse me, sir. Let me ask the questions here.
All right, hold on, Vocab. Let him ask the question.
And it's not. It says when they're poor and cannot maintain themselves.
Let him ask the question, Vocab.
No, that is incorrect.
Read verse 35, Chris.
Excuse me. I'm going to read verse 35, and that is the law for the Israelites. That is not the law for the other nations that are around them. It says your men servants and maid servants shall come from the nations around you, from whom you may purchase them. So they are purchasing chattel slaves. Am I correct? Yes or no?
No, because they also went into servitude because they also could not pay their debts. That's why they're being
show me the context there.
That is the context.
No, it's not.
It
says 42 through 43.
It's a discussion about people.
Let me ask the question here.
I can prove it from verse 47.
Verse 47?
Because, yes, it speaks about if an Israelite falls into the hands of a sojourner, when they become poor, it's all about the poor who don't have enough money, so they have to enter into servitude. That's what
that is not what verse 47 says. That is a lie. Verse 47 does not say what you just said. Let me read this real quick.
And your brother beside him becomes poor and sells himself.
Can I ask the questions, please? Is it okay?
You can ask questions, of course.
Thank you.
I'm answering them.
I don't need the gish galloping. All right. Now, verse 47 does not say what you said. You just lied again.
No, don't tell me I'm lying. No, don't tell me I'm lying.
There is no verse 47. There is no verse 47.
Don't tell me I'm lying.
Hold on.
You made this.
Stick with the question, y'all.
Don't tell me I'm lying. I'm not lying.
Vocab.
Nobody's lying.
There is no verse 47.
And besides, according to your worldview, lying's not wrong.
Hold on. There is no verse 47 in Leviticus 26. There is no verse 27.
You're in Leviticus 25, man.
No, I'm not. I'm reading from Leviticus 26.
You said turn to Leviticus 25. That's what we've been reading the whole time.
I just read from Leviticus 26. That's why I said that.
I'm reading Leviticus 25:47. What are you reading?
How are you reading Leviticus 25 when we are clearly reading from Leviticus 26?
That's not the section I would read.
Leviticus 25. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Forgive me, brother. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Now, Leviticus 25.
My bad. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So in Leviticus 25, my bad. I went to the wrong one. Excuse me. I was on 26. Forgive me.
I accept your apology.
Leviticus 25, verse 47. It goes into a different context. It says, now, if a sojourner or stranger close to you becomes rich, and one of your brethren who dwells by him becomes poor and sells himself. So we're going back into the law of the Israelite. So that won't work there. So let's go here back to verse 46.
You're reading it wrong, Chris.
No, I'm not. And this is a shame right here. So let me just read this to you. In verse 46, it says, let me read this. It says, you may purchase them from the foreigners residing among you or their clans living among you who are born in your land. These may become your property. Is that what it says?
What verse are you in now?
I'm in Leviticus 25,
you went up to 45?
45.
Yeah, you may also buy from among the strangers who sojourn with you and their clans that are with you. So these are sojourners who living with them.
What version are you reading from?
ESV. I'm reading from a modern version.
So you're reading from an English Standard Version, which tried to clean this up. I noticed that. That's
time out. I stopped the
clock. Are you using the KJV?
Time out, everybody. I got it when I talk. Time out, everybody. Chris, all you got to do is tell him to read from the version you're reading from, so y'all could be on
the same page.
Stop the clock.
Okay. Thank you. The clock begin again, please.
Well, how about here's what we'll do. If you
read from the King James Version, please.
I'll let you read from the King James Version.
Can you read?
I'm not going to an inferior translation.
Okay, that's now he's saying that the word of God is in fact inferior, people.
All right, hold on. Vocab. I paused the clock again. If the brother wants you to read the King James, you got to answer his question, Vocab. It don't mean you believe in it. It's just what he's proving a point out of the King James. We know you don't follow the King James.
The point needs to come out of the Hebrew, and the Hebrew translated into the English in the 21st century is more precise.
Hold up, but he's questioning you, Vocab. He's questioning you right now. So he's asking you, can you read?
No, Sonetta, watch this.
All right, clock starts, y'all.
I'm okay with the KJV. I'm just saying, I'm not reading.
Watch this. Vocab Malone, can you please show me the original Hebrew text of Leviticus chapter 25, please?
You want it on your screen, or do you want me to tell you what the verse under question said?
The original Hebrew text for Leviticus 25. I asked you for an original Hebrew text.
Yeah, it's gonna take a second. All right. I don't have it up right now.
Okay, moving on. You don't have it.
Well, no, I can show it to you.
There is no 7th century original Leviticus text.
Hold on.
No, it doesn't exist. And he's gone.
Okay, you can keep talking, Chris, while he's gone, so your time don't mess up.
No. I want everybody to see this.
You want me to pause your time?
Of course, pause the time.
Okay, pause time. This is the time left, y'all.
You asked me to do it, so
can you show everybody what text you are reading from, please?
I'm reading from English. We're not having
no. I asked. Hold on. Watch this. I asked you for an original Hebrew text.
Yeah. So
is that the original Hebrew text?
What do you mean? You mean like, do I have a Dead Sea Scroll on me?
The Dead Sea Scrolls is not an original Hebrew text. Can you show me an original Hebrew text that Moses wrote, sir?
What? We don't have what? There you go, from the JPS.
Okay, that looks like excuse me, sir. That looks like Aramaic to me. That don't look like
not
Hebrew.
Aramaic. This is Hebrew.
Aramaic, sir.
Well, it's not.
Aramaic comes from the kingdom of Aramea. I actually
this is not Aramaic.
Okay, moving on.
Yes, that's Hebrew.
Moving on.
This is Hebrew. Okay.
Does it say?
It says.
Excuse me.
Hebrew,
I'm asking
English,
a question here.
All right, let him
ask
a question. Vocab.
So I did what you asked, but you don't want to be there. But okay.
In verse 45, it says that these people may become your property. You may leave them to your sons after you to inherit as property. You can make them slaves for life. But as for your brothers, the Israelites, no man may rule harshly over his brother. Vocab. Is it moral to make somebody a slave for life?
This is because of the hardness of the heart and the fallenness of the world.
That's not what I asked you.
This is not.
I asked you a simple question. I asked you, can you make somebody a slave for life?
It's not ideal, but this is servitude because
it's not ideal. Pause. Thank you. There's your answer.
Yeah, no, it's not ideal. I'll say that it is not an ideal situation.
Very good.
It's not something I would wish on anybody.
So we can agree that you see this as being oppressive. Am I correct?
Well, when you look at Hebrew slavery versus the other nations, and even a lot of situations we have today, it's radically different. For example, you brought up the text where if they got a busted eye, they can walk out. So that's clearly not like antebellum slavery, right? And you have a situation where
it does. Hold on. Thank you for your answer. But it does say you can hit them, though, right?
No, see again. It says. Remember, I read from multiple verses.
Does it say?
Remember, I read from multiple verses. It said, "Do not oppress the foreigner among you or the stranger among you."
It does say that when they were leaving out. I agree that it says that, but we have a problem. Hold on.
This is prior, though, bro.
Take a deep breath. I will agree with you there that it does say that, Vocab Malone, but also it says in Leviticus 25, which you just acquiesced to, said that it's not an ideal situation.
No,
so right there, don't interrupt me. You just admitted that it is somewhat oppressive. And then you even admitted that, you couldn't hit them like antebellum slavery. But the text does say that if they hit them, certain provisions could not happen. Does it say that?
Yeah, they could leave. So that's justice.
Oh, but it does.
And that's why it shows you the kind of what you're thinking about slavery.
Right. No.
You're asking me a question. My goodness, I have no chance to answer.
You're just interrupting. Thank you.
But
So
remember,
people,
I said,
I want y'all to hear.
Notice I'm literally saying one sentence. You were going on for paragraphs, and then you didn't like it when I stopped you. You won't even let me get a sentence out. So I'm going to stop answering.
Because hold on, Vocab. Already acquiesced to Leviticus 25, verse 44 through 46, saying it's not an ideal situation. This is what you said.
Yep.
Sonetta, I can rest the rest of my time. There is no need to ask anything else. But hold on. Let's go.
Let's have an open dialogue then for 4 minutes.
Hold on. No.
Oh, so you're not going to do it. You're just talking trash.
In Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 10, it says, in verse 14, it says, but the women, children, livestock, and whatever else is in the city, all its spoil you may take is plunder. I'm asking you that, is that considered moral today?
Today?
Yeah.
I mean, people do a lot worse than this today. But
I'm asking you, is it moral?
Is what part exactly are you saying?
Taking women and children for plunder considered moral?
Well, after you defeat them, you either are you going to kill them all or are you going to take them with you? That's your choice.
Oh, beautiful.
Yep.
So you're using standing logic, but the Bible says, kill all the women and children who have not known men. That's what it says. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, in certain context, but you left out Rahab.
I'm not talking about Rahab.
You're not talking about Rahab.
Hold on, Vocab.
It shows your reading is wrong. That's the point with the Rahab example.
Hold on. You just admitted that taking women and children for plunder ain't necessarily bad unless you're going to kill them. But it says kill the women who have known.
No, that's not what I said. That is not what I said. What I said is those are your options. It's not like you have a POW camp.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you.
Notice how I can't even get a full sentence out.
Now you know how I felt.
No, I was letting you get paragraphs out. So if you got paragraphs out, you would answer and then pontificate with a response instead of just answer the question. I am not even able to finish the sentence. This is much different than my Q&A with you.
Okay.
So you're not repeating accurately what I said. I just want you to know that.
Okay. Are you going to answer the question? Is it moral to kill all the women who have known men? Is that moral?
It's moral to do whatever God commands you to do. If that's what he tells you to do, then that's what you should do, because you in that situation are his instrument of judgment. The problem is you don't like judgment, but the Bible says God gave them 400 years. So it is moral to do what God tells you to do.
Real quick. So when he went in there, can you prove that God told them to kill the Israelites? Because it was Moses that gave that command, not God.
Well, you're assuming that God does not speak through Moses, much like some of the Israelites.
It does not say the Lord said.
Let me finish a sentence.
I don't have to. Why?
Okay, well then,
you mad.
That's because I showed you the courtesy of letting you get a sentence plus paragraphs out, and you got upset when I interrupted your paragraph. Now I can't even finish a sentence. Remember what Sonetta kept on saying again and again? He was like, he has a minute. And I said, okay, I'll let him go some, but you don't have to take the full minute. And then now I'm not even finishing one sentence, and you're not letting me finish. So I don't see how this is okay or good. And I said I would do this to you if that's what you were going to do. So
all right. So family. Right now, we're going to open up the lines, get a couple of questions in. If y'all have any questions, this is the time for y'all to do it. I'm not asking you to call in and teach or to preach. It's simply to call in and ask a question. I don't want to cut nobody off now. So follow the rules. Call in, ask your question, and you'll be all right.
Hey, yo, Si, is that all right if I use the bathroom real quick?
Yes, go ahead, brother.
Yes, sir. I'm going to hit the camera so my wife don't walk past.
Go ahead. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, brother.
Is this Chris' first debate on Sonetta?
Yeah. Come on, y'all. Call it in. Chris doing good. He did good.
I think it was only 2 years ago he called me and wanted to debate from the position of an Old Testament Israelite.
All right. Peace and Black Power, family. Peace and Black Power. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Dre, calling from Fresno, California.
All right. What's up, Dre?
What's up, man? I'm wondering if Chris Harris can tell us where we can find the better moral code to govern ourselves by, since it's not the Bible.
Okay. Wait till he get back. He should be back in a minute. Just give him a minute.
This guy. I thought a debate with Chris might be like this. But hey. What's up, man? Is this Dre?
Dre, yeah, what's up, Vocab?
As in Dre Day?
No, I'm working on the. I'm gonna get a doctor soon, and I'll be Dr. Dre. But it's coming.
Oh, that's dope. No, there's an account I follow on IG that his name's Dre Day, and I thought that was you, but I wasn't referring to.
No.
Gotcha. Oh, what you working on your doctorate?
I'm trying to become a lawyer, so it's gonna be a doctorate in law.
Oh
yeah. No, I hit you up that one time telling
you cut out my.
And tell me to keep my cousin afloat with Hebrew Israelite stuff. So I appreciate you.
No doubt, it cut out a little bit, but I think I think I understood what you're saying.
All
well,
right.
Chris is from here. I mean,
waiting on Chris Harris.
I mean, I don't know. So I don't think he ever adequately answered, but I think he wants to just say, well, I don't have to answer anything like that. But notice how it's a position that doesn't get us.
This was a great
anywhere.
debate with both of y'all. Both of y'all came with some strong, powerful points. So it was good.
So, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're not up yet. You got to let the brother finish. He ain't asked his question yet. You next.
Come on, my goodness, Chris.
All right, Chris is here. Ask your question, brother.
Chris, I was wondering if you could tell us where we can get an objective moral code from, since obviously we can't use the Bible. If you could tell us the source of it, where we can go.
Can you give me a definition for objective moral code?
Objective meaning that it transcends mankind, that it's applicable to all mankind of all time, in all place, that we're morally bound to keep and to follow.
I think that's somewhat of a misleading question, but you can look at the laws of Ma'at. Those go through, those translate throughout all time. The biblical narrative does not translate throughout all time. The laws of Ma'at, the 42 laws of Ma'at expressly say, I have not enslaved. Now, these are codes that are inherently within us. That's why it doesn't say thou shall not, because maybe we already understood not to do those things. So when you talk about something that can translate through all times, we see Ma'at can. And if it can't, can you please open up the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at and point to something that you can't do today and that nobody else should want to embrace? Because I opened up 15 laws today and showed you laws that are morally inapplicable today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, I could think of something. Burying slaves with the dead kings.
That's not Ma'at, sir.
Is that part of Ma'at? What's that
part
of?
No, it's not. That's just a ritual.
Well, where'd that come from?
That came from a ritual in Kemet.
Who's the keeper of Ma'at according to Egyptian religion? Isn't it the pharaoh?
Yes, he's supposed to, and the rest of the people also.
Right, so the embodiment of Ma'at gets to have his slaves buried with them. They got to die to be in there?
Well, if they have slaves, it's wrong there too.
Oh, so you don't really follow Egyptian tradition then, do you?
I don't think any of us follow Egyptian tradition anymore.
Thank God.
All right. Peace and Black Power family. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Black Jesus Minister, can you hear me?
I hear you, brother. What's up?
Yeah, great debate. Vocab, you won the debate when you had Chris to admit that he prays to his ancestors who are Christians and who believe in the Bible. Now, to Chris, my question to you is, brother, how in the hell can you sit up here and argue all night about moral absolutes, and you say that the Bible is absolutely immoral, when you say that morality, you define morality as your human experience? How do you do that, sir?
Because I know it's because of the experiences that African Americans went through with slavery over here. I could look at a slave doctrine within the Bible and say that is morally wrong. And for you,
Sir, but do you
hold
agree that
on, let me
human
finish answering
experience
the question.
is that more
Have a right
Let
to
him
answer
finish.
the
Let him
question.
finish, Black Jesus. Let him finish answering.
The problem, the reason why I'm so brokenhearted with my own people when it comes to this doctrine is because you guys get on here and you hem and hee haw about the fact that this is not slavery when it clearly says that you can own these people forever. And you guys try to run all over the Bible and act all skittish when you see it there, shows that you are in fact a slave to the doctrine. So you are not even liberated mentally. You still have a lot of oppressive mental chains on you. This is clear slavery. Because women who were not free were allowed to be were allowed to be raped.
You're missing his point. You have no basis to condemn these things. That was his point.
No. He's talking to me. Please don't.
Yeah, you have no basis to condemn these things.
Human experience.
I don't
need a book. See, here's
you
the
already
thing.
rechanged that answer.
No, what you
said it was you and your friends.
Hold on. If I stand on Ma'at, you can't find nothing in Ma'at, so you run to a pharaoh who was buried with his
There wasn't
slave.
one pharaoh.
It doesn't matter.
The questions. Black Jesus.
Hold on. Sorry. Let me have this. What they do is they want to talk about Ma'at, but then they run to another Egyptian ritual. So if you want to talk about Ma'at, we could talk about Ma'at. I have no problem with talking about that because I actually love the Netaru. But then you run to an ancient Egyptian ritual and instead of talking about Ma'at because you know your God-forsaken can stand up.
Stop bringing up Ma'at then. If you're scared to talk about it, if you're scared to discuss it, Chris, don't bring it up.
Okay, well,
you're the one bringing it up, not me. You brought it up first numerous times.
Well, he asked a simple question about what can transition throughout time, and I brought up Ma'at.
All right, time.
You said you don't even follow though.
Time, vocab. Time, vocab.
You said none of us do.
Fuck Yahweh. What he gonna do?
that's what a dude does who has no answer.
All right, time, y'all. Time.
Nice
y'all.
try.
That's what a white boy does who tries to push and proselytize on here.
Family, time. Let's get back. Black Jesus, are you done?
White Jesus.
Yeah, Chris didn't answer my question. Chris, I don't think you understand what I'm saying, bro.
No,
I'm saying to you, you're condemning the Bible.
Yes.
You cannot condemn the Bible. Listen, brother, you can't condemn the Bible. You can't condemn Hitler. You can't condemn a Christian. You can't condemn a believer or non-believer because you don't have no moral standard. You said it's your human experience. So if somebody's doing evil, that's good to them. You can't convict them. If somebody's doing something else that you don't like, but they like it, you cannot indict them because you don't have a moral standard. Where is your moral standard when you say that your moral standard and definition of morality is the human experience?
Okay, when you say moral standard, are you speaking about believing in a religious standard? Is that what you're talking about?
Now, I'm talking about your belief system, that your morality is defined by your human experience.
That's the problem. I don't have a belief system. And what you guys want is for me to have a belief system in order to hold your Bible against somebody else's belief system. Because you guys
it's a human experience and you cannot condemn the Bible. You said it's the human experience, so you can't condemn the Bible or nobody, Chris. You lost the debate. Thank you, man.
Okay.
You lost the debate.
All right. Thank you, Black Jesus. Thank you. Peace and Black Power family. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Rod McCarthy.
All right, Rod McCarthy. Let's go.
How you doing? How y'all brothers doing? I just want to say this question is for Chris. And before I say that, Chris, the way you're upset about the whole thing, it really makes me feel that you have expected God to do something for you in your life. You didn't get that answer, and now you're spending the rest of your life trying to disprove him.
No, I'm not.
And it's obvious. Now, I want to say I valued back you last time I had the conversation, but we can talk about that later when you want just real work. Now, the question I have for you, brother, is if Hitler looks at the book of geometry and studies a book of geometry, and then Chris Harris looks at that same book.
Chris left.
Oh, well, this question is for anybody.
Okay, good.
You know, because this is the point I want to make.
Oh, he's back.
He's
back. Go ahead.
Okay.
He dropped out. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. I understand. The question I have for you is, if Hitler gets a book of geometry and learns and studies and teaches out of that book of geometry, and then on the same level, Chris Harris looks at the book of geometry and learns and teaches out of it. If Hitler is evil looking in this book, does that make Chris Harris also evil for looking and teaching out of the same book? That's the question I have. because you try to connect evilness with the Bible, because there are evil people who did look into the Bible. There are evil men who had agendas, but that doesn't negate the book and the scriptures that it comes from. So if Hitler is evil looking at the book of geometry and you looking at the book of geometry, does that make you evil too?
First of all, studying geometry.
Yes or no?
It's not a yes or no.
Yes or no, man.
It's
Now,
not
it's a yes or no question.
First of all,
yes, it is, sir. Sir, is that not a yes or no question? Sir, be honest.
Come on,
can I answer the question?
Hey, don't put me. I don't like when people.
First of all, geometry is not.
I'm sorry.
I just gotta ask.
Excuse me. Just because
the book is not even.
Excuse me. Can I answer the question?
If you don't like writes,
first of all, excuse me. The study.
Unzip the body bag and answer the question.
Okay. The study of geometry is not evil.
Sir, I said if you study the book of geometry, I ain't saying the book of geometry. That's what the point I'm trying to make. That the book of geometry is indeed not evil, just like the Holy Scriptures are not evil. But just because an evil man gets into the book of geometry and teaches from it, and then you, Chris Harris, having moral compass, looks at that same book and teaches that does not make you evil, just because he's evil. Just same way with the Bible. Just because one of the things you fail to answer is
okay, excuse me, sir. One of the things that you fail to answer is we are dealing with the biblical narrative here. And in the biblical narrative, it does say that slavery is, is allowed in the Bible. Vocab himself said right here on this platform on Leviticus 25 that it is not an ideal situation to be in. So when he stated that, he acquiesced to the whole thing, understanding that that is nothing righteous that you would want to be in. So slavery, in fact, is evil. And if somebody takes this book and reads this book and begins to manipulate this book by saying that God said it, then it can be used for evil purposes. You using Hitler,
that's what I said.
False equivalency, and I'm ready to move on.
Okay, well then let me use the Bible then. If Hitler uses the Bible, vocab. If the Hitler uses the Bible because he's listening and he understands that he don't want to work. But if Hitler uses the Bible and then somebody like Martin Luther King is using the same Bible, does that make King evil because Hitler is evil? Absolutely not. No matter what's going on in the Bible, God doesn't sanction every single thing in the day. It's just a story telling you of things that were going on. There are some things that we don't understand. There are some things that I question. But that does not negate the holiness of the scriptures. And since you don't have a personal relationship, you would never understand.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on, y'all. Any more callers, y'all? Any more callers? Let's go. Let's go.
Close this thing out.
A verse that militates against what you just said, Chris, is 1 Corinthians 7.
You had a chance to read that in the debate.
Check this out, what this says. Just based on what you just said, since it's not a caller. 1 Corinthians 7, listen to this. If you can gain your freedom, avail yourself of the opportunity. For he who was called in the Lord as a bondservant is a freedman of the Lord. Likewise, he who was free when called is a bondservant of Christ. You were bought with a price. Do not become bondservants of men. And so there you see Paul advocating, if you can get freedom out of slavery, take the opportunity. So there's no way someone is going to read it and say what you're saying. That's because you're reading it wrong on purpose. Same thing with the Exodus narrative. The Exodus narrative wouldn't be so prominent and dominant in liberation themes and the old spirituals and everywhere else if they understood it, which is really a purposeful misunderstanding like you do. So you're sitting by yourself on your.
Let me repeat this real quick. You can read the Pauline doctrine all you want, but as you can see, he's still advocating against slavery. That means it was still an institution practiced amongst the priests at that time. Why? Because the laws of Moses allowed the priests to have slaves. Even in the book of Philemon, where Paul returns a slave, he says, I hope you don't make him a slave because he is my brother in Christ. So he still, yes, he might be advocating for it, but that doesn't mean the institution itself is solved.
Well, yeah, Paul's not.
All right, time out.
Okay, so there was no liberation.
Time out. Peace and Black Power, family. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is a guy of mine calling from Detroit.
All right, can you get on the phone so you can be clear?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. What's your question?
My question is to Vocab Malone. You seem to find issue with a specific translation. and you wanted to use your translation to validate your position, of which I have no issue with. But you named a whole bunch of civil rights leaders and activists. Did they use the most common version, which would be the King James version, or your version, to accomplish what you say they accomplished, just from your perspective?
Well, the ESV wasn't in existence at that time. A lot of the translations that newer, not all of them were in existence. So, that wasn't a possibility. But some of the people that I mentioned, remember, they knew how to speak Greek and Hebrew. So they wouldn't be stuck only in
press 1 to send a voicemail.
Daniel Payne, for example, they would be able to read it in its original language, or Phyllis Wheatley, as they had facility in it. So they're not just reading the 1611 edition of the Bible. So sure, I'm sure that some were familiar with it. Some may have known it orally. And then there's also other translations that were in America. It wasn't just the KJV, but also remember that some of them could go directly to the text itself in the original language. You know what I mean?
All right, brother, you done?
Yeah, I just think that it's, I understand you're kind of shaping it up, but you have an issue with the King James version, but most of everybody is familiar with the King James version, and that would be what would be most prominent by all of the people that you named to make your point.
Some of them, I already answered your question. But I don't live in the 17th century, and I don't speak 17th century English, and neither do you. When the King James version came out, there was translations before it. There was already English translations that existed. It essentially replaced a lot of them as it became more popular, but those translations didn't all disappear or go away. It just became the most popular. And so the King James version is fine and it's historically important, but I want to be a little more scholarly. There are places where the King James version fails us because there's simply some small misunderstandings about Hebrew and Greek grammar. And there's some things that we know now that we didn't know then in regards to definitions of words. And computer analysis helps, where before, when you collated, you couldn't use a computer. That wasn't an option. So there wasn't a way to check the sort of fluency between different committees because they would chop it up into different sections. So it wasn't always as smooth across the board as it should be. I'm okay with the KJV, but I'm just want to be a little more accurate is all.
All right, moving on. Area code 4635. 4635.
Yeah, that's Fort Worth, Texas. This is MJ Jackson. I got a question for both gentlemen.
All right.
All right. So Chris made a really big deal about ethnocentrism of foreigners being treated differently, but there are several passages in the Bible, some like Exodus 12:48, Numbers 9:14, Numbers 15:14, where the alien or the sojourner could become circumcised and basically serve Yahweh. You also have Isaiah 56, where Isaiah 56:6, where it says also the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord to minister to him, to love his name, to be a servant, everyone who keeps from profaning the Sabbath, holds fast to my covenant. Basically, these foreigners could come up under Yahweh's covenant.
All right, what's your question, brother? What's your question?
Isn't it possible that the sojourners or the strangers could come up under the covenant and be treated with equality amongst the people of God? Is that possible? And is that an avenue of liberation?
Is that a question he's asking me?
He said for both of us.
Let me answer that first. Okay, well, let me answer that first. The first thing I got to objectively deal with is the fact that if this stranger does not want to be under the covenant of Yahweh, he is considered a heathen. And that same heathen can be promised, be enslaved, and he is considered a heathen. So yes, while those verses do say that, keeping it in its proper context, we also see in Leviticus 25, in Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, and many other places in the Bible in which I've read that clearly states that you can enslave certain peoples throughout this text. Now, honestly, none of this stuff ever happened. All right. And 2, that you have to wipe yourself clean of the gods that you worship. That's what makes the books very ethnocentric, because they're saying, hey, our doctrine is real, and these other nations around us, that is in fact fake. And what Joe Vocab and everybody else does while you guys are hemming and hawing over this doctrine is, in fact, you guys run around and saying everybody else's doctrine is in fact evil, but somehow yours is good, when I showed you in your very own text that these things are there. But one of the things you try to do is, oh, I'm gonna underwrite it by saying, hey, look what it says here. Yeah, but look what it says in Leviticus 25 also. So yes, it is there, and you have to get rid of your gods. You have to, these indigenous people have to lose sight of who they are for thousands of years and join under the covenant of Yahweh, some smoke in the sky that never existed, by the way. Last but not least, and I'm gonna let Vocab answer this a bit honestly, is the this thing where Africans had to convert in certain instances to be treated better as slaves. So the covenant of Yahweh or the covenant of Jesus did not liberate them. I'm tired of everybody coming in here asking me or trying to say, hey, what is your what do you stand on morally? And I continuously say the human experience. I try to treat others as people treat me. He tried to say that's a biblical teaching when it's really not. It's an old ancient Egyptian teaching that's found right there in your book, and many other things in the book is all relatively Egyptian, but yet they want to turn around and talk about how much they hate it. So yeah, you can go ahead. It does say those things. I'm not going to denounce those, but also the book of Isaiah says that the Ethiopians should go out in chains around their neck. It also says that. So you still have to deal with all of that. The bottom line is put this stuff down. It's no good. It's no need for it. It's archaic Iron Age, Bronze Age concepts that aren't even applicable today. They asked me what moral relativity can I give to them today. All right.
That's just cool. So if you're saying
a problem with that, you might be heard.
So Chris,
you just be quiet.
If you're saying that it's wrong for the Israelites to tell other nations their gods are fake, then why are you telling people who follow this religion their gods are fake? Why is it okay for you but not okay for them?
Oh, I'm telling you your God is fake because watch this. Watch what I do.
Why is it okay for you, but not okay for them?
I'm going to show you, because your book has hundreds of thousands of years enslaving people.
Okay, so but why is it okay for you? Why is it okay for you to do what you're complaining about others doing? You see the problem there? You're saying, hey, they got to put down their gods and stuff, but you yourself said, hey, you guys need to get out of the mental slavery of the Christian religion. Why is it okay for you to do, but it's not okay for others to do? That's what I understand. You're a hypocrite, Chris.
I'm saying this in the name of what you all have taught the European in the name of Christianity. You all went amongst indigenous
Okay, you said F Yahweh. That's a Hebrew phrase.
We got one last question.
So you're a hypocrite.
Time out. We got one last question, and then we're out of here.
Moving on.
And the last question goes to Pastor Bennett is in the building. What's up,
Pastor? Called out.
What's up, sir?
All right. What's going on, man? Your Bible is under attack, brother. What's happening?
From somebody that obviously don't understand interpretation or context or anything. Reading the Bible, one thing, interpreting it is something different. But I do have a question for Brother Chris. What's up to Brother Chris and Brother Vocab? My question based on the morality, since he's going through a litany of questioning the morality of the Bible. When Vocab asked him about where his morality is from, he stated that from his human experience. So I've just a part one and a part two. Chris, are you the only one having your human experience?
No.
Okay. Can you tell me who else is having your human experience?
I didn't say anybody else was having my human experience.
And Shanetta, that would show you the difficulty when I say he lacks understanding. I just asked the man, is he the only one having his human experience? He said no. Then I asked him who else, and he said I didn't. I'm going to try to ask you one more time, Chris. Are you the only one having your human experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me answer the question. Your questions are a little bit misleading, because when you ask for my human experience is very unique to me. Your human experience is centered around what, Pastor Bennett? It would probably be around the doctrine of Christianity, your family, what you teach, your home, what builds you up. Am I correct?
No, I'm only asking.
No.
You said your.
Wow.
Chris can't just answer a question. He's got to pontificate in that question.
Vocab.
Hey, vocab. Hold on, Pastor Bennett. I can deal with mine. I need you to be quiet.
Hey, Chris.
Go ahead,
How about you answer his question then, instead of asking him a question?
We got Pastor on the phone. Y'all, come on, man. Go ahead, Pastor Bennett.
He a European. He okay, son.
Who smashed you tonight?
Okay.
All right, come on, Pastor Bennett. You on the line. Go ahead, Pastor Bennett.
Go ahead, Pastor.
Just I'm basing my question off of y'all. You know, I'm not on the hot seat tonight. Y'all were asking questions, so I'm a caller calling in to ask a question. I'm saying, when he asked you where you get your morality from, you said my human experience.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, aren't you the only one having your human experience?
And I'm going to say it again. Yes.
Okay. So if you are the only one having your experience, and you base morality based off what you experience, but you're not experiencing the same things that anybody else, especially those who are in the Bible that you're questioning. So my question to you, how can you, who are the only one having your experience, determine if anybody is immoral or moral, since they're not having your experience? If your morality is only based on what you experience, then how can you be making judgment about a people in a time that did not experience what you're experiencing? Now, then, or later, how can you make a judgment if you are the only one having your experience?
Okay, very good.
Can you
Once
judge
again,
anybody else's experience?
I answer the question. Is it okay, Pastor Bennett? Do I have permission to answer the question?
Oh gosh.
Hey, Saul, let's end this, bro. Because I'm getting a little bit agitated listening to Vocab be so emotional up there.
You're the one yelling.
Hey, Vocab.
You want to
Hey, Vocab. Since you like to talk about Egyptian kings, is it okay? Hold on, Pastor Bennett. Hold on. Is it okay for kings to grab another man by his
Can you
nuts
answer
and
his
make a
question?
promise?
Can you answer his question?
Yeah. If you
I'm
could just
Can you answer his question?
But anyway, like I said,
You want to
Pastor
run
Bennett,
now?
First of all, I know the human experience. The reason why I continuously say that, because we all have our very own unique experiences while we're on this planet. I think us as Africans Americans in this country, we've been put through a lot. Now, if I could look at the conditions and what we've been through as a people in this society, especially dealing with slavery, Jim Crow, civil rights, the sacrifices that we made, along with police brutality that we face today, because it's still an uphill struggle, economics and education, I can honestly sit back and say, without a shadow of a doubt, that each one of our experiences is very unique. And the African American experience is truly unique amongst the rest of the Africans in this world. Why am I saying that? Because each one of us has our own very unique experience, and we can look back at slavery and see what happened to our ancestors. We could look at CNN and look at police brutality and see that those things are wrong. And when we could see that these things are being justified in a book that's supposed to be given by God, we could sit up there and say, hey, look, that's wrong, because I could look at that and see that that's wrong. The question that needs to be raised is, why are these atrocities being seen as righteous in a book that's supposed to be given by a loving God? And that is the question that you guys have not answered this entire night on this panel. And that is what's frustrating for me on this panel tonight with all of you all, while I have this European up here constantly trying to engage me, constantly trying to throw ad hominems all night, constantly talking about the fact that I was an Israelite 7 years ago, constantly trying to call me an atheist, and constantly disrespect African peoples and my ancestors when he himself calls upon a dead man on a cross. Thank you. I think I've said it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Hey, Pastor Bennett, thank you. I got to get you up back in the ring. Divine Prospect is calling you out, Pastor Bennett. I want you to know that. I'll say it again. I spoke to Divine yesterday. He is calling you out, Pastor Bennett. Are you going to talk to me or keep ducking me? Peace and black power, Pastor Bennett. Okay, Chris, I'm going to let you close out. You got time to close out, my brother. And then I'm going to let Vocab close out. Being that he went first, I'll let Vocab close out last. You can close out. Closing arguments.
Okay, here's what I want to sit up there and say. As you can see, the Christians, they're very emotional once you start bringing up these things in the Bible. They want to talk about what is your moral standard, okay, because they want some type of equity or something that they can attack. You guys even heard a gentleman called up here and said, hey, what can we use that can translate through time? I brought up Ma'at. What they tried to do is then move the needle and say, hey, what about the Egyptian kings that was buried with a slave? But it's very easy for me to say that, hey, our African ancestors and Africans themselves have apologized for their role in slavery. But instead of dealing with Ma'at objectively, what they try to do is conflate the fact that I said my human experience is what teaches me right from wrong. Yes, I was once a Christian. Yes, I was once an Israelite. No, I am not an atheist. Yes, I do not appreciate the Bible. It was weaponized and it was used as a weapon against indigenous people all over the earth. Vocab Malone said himself when regarding Leviticus, the 25th chapter, that it is not an ideal situation. He said that because he's know that he does not want to be owned as property by anyone forever. But then he tried to say, oh, it's a form of selling yourself into destitution. Well, if you can sell yourself into destitution and somebody can own you forever, that is still exploitative, sir. The fact that you can sit up there and own a man's wife and children and try to force him to, hey, become a slave forever if you say you love your wife and your kids, because that's the stipulation that they put in there, shows that you're even blind. It shows that you don't use common sense. It shows that you have cognitive barriers put all up around you. And it's, yes, you are a slave to Christ. The Christ doctrine itself is an enslaving doctrine because it tells you that you shall be put in chains, you shall be put in holes, you should be put in jail. Even in the book of Revelations, it tells you that these things are going to happen to Christians, which he admitted in the book of Revelations is supposed to be the end of all things. So therefore, it's not even liberating at the end of it. What he tried to use is this moral code that he likes to talk about. He even sat up there and said that, oh yeah, God can punish and kill who he chooses with his righteous judgment. But then he wants to use it there when it suits him, but then turn around and try and say that God is a liberating God. But God hates a group of people because of the gods that they worship. Let me explain something to y'all here. The Bible, the fact that he said he doesn't agree with this after he said that, oh, they're just selling themselves into slavery. They're selling themselves. But then when you read it to him in its proper context, which none of these Christians called up here and addressed, he said, it's something I don't want to morally, I don't think that it would be a good situation for. Why does he admit that now? The debate is over because he knows that it is inherently oppressive. It is inherently exploitative. God should have known that man will take a doctrine such as this and take it into other people's lands and try to sit up there and use it as a power wheel against them by telling them, because this book says something, because this book says that it's evil, that your culture is evil. They are adjudicating other people's cultures according to one's own. And that is the true definition of what ethnocentrism is. The book is only written from the position of the Israelite. Jesus never said anything about coming to redeem some European. That is a Pauline doctrine that this brother was teaching. The Bible never speaks of everybody. It only speaks of the Israelites. Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Ezra, all of them are only speaking to one group of people. They are not speaking to you. And what does he offer you all? Liberation theology. He said that it was a concept because he does not believe that what people can be liberated or freedom. When he asked me, what does freedom mean? And I told him that freedom is liberation, which your Bible does not offer. It is oppressive. It has sanctioned genocide. They have songs about bashing babies' heads in. I guess it don't mean that in context. They celebrate a damn festival called the Passover in which African children were killed. And you have the audacity to sit here and say somehow your book is righteous. This book makes you lose all your common sense. And when somebody like me comes around and tries to tear down these cognitive barriers that these Christians, in which all he offered was liberation theology, because he knows the book is oppressive, guess what they say? You're the bad guy. I'll be that. So with that being said, Brother Sarnetta, thank you, King, for allowing me on. This is very special to me because this is my first debate. And as you would call the big time, I really enjoyed it. I just want to say this in closing because I'm enjoying pissing everybody off. Fuck Yahweh, Moses, Jesus, David, Abraham and his 3 wicked ass sons. and your Bible and your fake false liberation theology. Peace and fuck
All
the
right.
European.
Thank you, brother Chris. Thank you for coming through. All right, brother. You got the floor. Vocab is on you right now.
So Chris
Close it.
left during my closing statement.
Yes.
He just took off.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to debate that guy again. I mean, look at this. He's not taking it serious. He goes to the bathroom and he takes off. All right. Notice that you have an appeal by Chris to human experience, and then yet he also appealed to some sort of Egyptian moral code. He should look at the tomb of Neferhotep. What do you see there? A scribe calling over a list of slaves in his master's presence, and in the scene, one slave has his hands bound and is being dragged along by a rope, while two others have been punished and the guard is about to fetter them. The primary sources listed here, it's on page 65 of a book I recommend people get, Everyday Life in Egypt, University of Pennsylvania Press by Pierre Montet, very well-known Egyptologist. Now, what happens if we abandon the Bible or outlaw it or say no? I want to show you the kind of societies that you end up with, because there is a reason why there was an abolitionist movement, and there's a reason why there's women's suffrage and all those kinds of things. And the basis was Christian. The basis was scripture again and again and again. I'm going to show you what you'll end up with instead. And this is why no one will take Chris's proposal serious on a moral level, because what he advocates is not livable or practical. So let me bring up this real quick. And here we go. This is what happens when if you could share my screen as I close out. This is what happens when you apply unbelief instead of Christianity to a society. You end up with often social Darwinism or some kind of state, almost a religion of the state. And the reason is because of what Darwin said about people. At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. So that in the descent of man. He also said that the weak members of civilized societies propagate their kind. No one who has attended the breeding of domestic animals will doubt that this must be highly injurious to the race of man. It is surprising how soon a want of care or care wrongly directed leads to the denigration of a domestic race, but excepting in the case of man himself, hardly anyone is so ignorant as to allow his worst animals to breed. He's saying the worst members of society should not be allowed to breed anymore. And Stephen Jay Gould, a famous paleontologist from Harvard, said biological arguments for racism may have been common before 1850, but they increased by orders of magnitude following the acceptance of evolutionary theory. And instead of what Chris is complaining about, a society where he's able to come on the internet and speak freely, he would end up with something like this. One of these kinds of guys is a ruler: Pol Pot, Cambodia, Khmer Rouge, Mao Zedong in China, or Joseph Stalin. There you have Russian propagandist literature where they do away with the Abrahamic religions. Look at the image from a propaganda paper on the left, especially. Do away with Yahweh. The plan is in 5 years. He would like that. And they do away with Jesus on the right. This is what he's advocating. But what do you end up when you do that? You end up with China, that kind of persecution, or Cuba, perhaps. These countries are officially declared atheistic. Or you get North Korea, or you get what is happening in North Vietnam. You don't get a free society, and the reason is because there's not another source of morals to go with. An Egyptian society wouldn't work either. Look at Michael Ruse, biologist from Florida, says, morality is a biological adaptation no less than our hands and feet and teeth, considered as a rationally justifiable set of claims about an objective something. Ethics is illusory. Really, Chris doesn't understand philosophy enough, but if he understood that he was banking all of his moral support on the human experience, his ethics are also illusory. He just doesn't understand the philosophy well enough to know that, but that's the fact. I appreciate that when somebody says, love thy neighbor as thyself, they think they are referring above and beyond themselves. Nevertheless, such reference is truly without foundation. Morality is just an aid to survival and reproduction, and any deeper meaning is illusory. Or Will Provine, a biologist professor at Cornell University, look at what he said. Let me summarize my views on what modern evolutionary biology tells us loud and clear. And these are basically Darwin's views. There are no gods, no purposes, and no goal-directed forces of any kind. There is no life after death. When I die, I'm absolutely certain that I'm going to be dead. That's the end of me. There is no ultimate foundation for ethics, no ultimate meaning of life, and no free will for humans either. The reason I bring this up is because Chris says it's a human experience, then when pressed, says it's actually just his family and friends, but then he also says no one else is sharing his human experience. There is no foundation there. Chris doesn't know where humans come from. He says he doesn't follow the gods of Egypt. He has no source other than himself, and he changes his worldview every few years. No one should be banking on his opinion, his understanding, because it's a misunderstanding. Just give it a few more years, and Chris will be offering a different worldview with a different set of critiques. We can't put our morality on something so fickle and a goal and a target that keeps on moving. The Bible, though, is the final answer, and this is my final slide, final two slides. I reiterate how it is. It offers the foundation of liberation, the method of liberation, the model of liberation. That's the Imago Dei, love God and neighbor, and Jesus Christ. It offers condemnation of oppression, judgment of oppression, and elimination of oppression. It has laws that outlaw this kind of immoral oppression and judgment for if you go against it in the temporal world, and also a permanent elimination of all oppression. This is not liberation theology in the way he's saying it. This is classic Christian understanding. I don't think he understands what liberation theology is, because this is not liberation theology as it was formulated in the 60s. This is a classic Christian understanding of truth. And what's the big thing that's going to be eliminated by Jesus Christ at the end? It's death, the ultimate oppressor. 1 Corinthians 15, 54 through 55 says this, and this is where I close. When the perishable puts on the imperishable, and the mortal puts on immortality, then shall come to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? That is true, ultimate liberation. Thank you, Sonetta.
All right. Thank you, Vocab. Appreciate you coming through. All right. Peace. We out, brother.
Yeah, he left. Wow.
All right. JJ.
Hold on. All right, there it is.
JJ, I want to say that the debate is over, and you called in at the end when everybody left. So you're lucky you family. I'm going to allow you to say what you want to say, but this is off the record. Hold on, brother. This is off the record. This is not continuing from the debate. But you want to say something? Go ahead and say it, brother.
Are we still live? That's all I need to know. Okay, well, this still has something to do with the debate. Well, let's stop this.
No, the debate is over with, though. You called in late, brother. I just let you in. You called me like 50 damn times. 50 damn times, brother.
Hold up.
But I'm going to allow you in because you family. So go ahead, brother.
All right. So, first, I want to congratulate Vocab Malone for your strategics, for the way you did it. You brought out information. You brought out information about how a lot of black people use this Bible to liberate us. You brought out people I ain't even ever heard of in my life. Chris Harris didn't bring nothing out. In your first round, he didn't debunk anything about what you said about how the Most High is going against oppression. In the second round, he could not rebuttal any of these people that use this Bible for liberation. Chris Harris' argument was weak through the whole debate, Sonetta. And then he went into Kemet, Ma'at. But he don't represent Ma'at. You have nothing to do with Ma'at, Chris Harris. You are a researcher, is what you told us. You actually told us you're a patriot. This is why he pulled up Thomas Jefferson, because he heard us talking about patriots using.
Enough.
No, Sonetta, no.
No, I can't let you do that, brother, because this ain't
Let me
fair.
ask you a question then.
JJ is not fair, brother. I can't let you do that. The debate is over with, and it is still.
Let me ask you this, Sonetta. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you, who won?
I don't know who won. That's for y'all to say, brother.
Are you serious?
Both of them did great. I can't tell you who won, but they both killed it right now. So JJ,
okay, so why did you
let you go? Because it's
because you're
Vocab.
I'm hanging up on your ass.
Hang up, brother. Yo, that's sad. Did y'all hear what JJ said? JJ said that it took vocab to teach him a little bit about Black history. I don't think he realized what he said, y'all. Did y'all hear him say that? He said because of vocab taught him about all these Black people that he didn't know existed. That's because you got your ass in a goddamn book. Bruh, if I was you, JJ, I would call me back when this video is over and beg my ass to please edit that shit out. That's not cool, Jay. Vocab had to come and tell you who these Black people were. Oh man, Jay. But anyway, JJ is family. Peace to everybody. I thank y'all for coming out, man. It was a great debate on both sides. And it was just beautiful on both sides, man. Chris came with his axe out. Vocab came with his sword out. And they both did their thing. It's up to y'all now to put in the comments who do you think won and why. So that's up to y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in.